Welcome to the Fantasy Audiobook. American Comics. Level 5 Mutants start with Gojo Satoru. Chapter 21. Teleportation is an advanced means of reversing the spell, Kang. Its basic principle is to use strong gravity to move instantaneously. But its essence is not a space jump, but the illusion of a space jump caused by extremely fast speed. During the action, Su-Emu's body will move quickly until it reaches the marked endpoint. It is precisely because of this that the powerful acceleration will injure him who uses both mantra manipulation and energy absorption to strengthen his body. If an ordinary person moved in the same way, he would probably be crushed into a pulp immediately by the huge pressure. At this time, Su-Mu was standing 500 meters above the ground. There was no object at this height. At the same time, he could use his 6 eyes to clearly see the scene on the ground, even in the basement. So Su-Mu chose to teleport here to search Jin Bin's location. The control technique reversed the repulsive force of he, and he made a running start in the air. Su-Mu grinned, and the azure power of the spell enveloped him. His body disappeared from the place in an instant, and appeared thousands of meters away. He drove away and disappeared again 30 seconds later. Inside Hell's Kitchen, in a dark alley, Spider-Woman solved a robbery incident, and then flew out of the alley on a spider's silk to continue looking for traces of crime. Suddenly, when she was being pulled by the spider thread and swinging upward, she suddenly noticed something from the corner of her eye. White hair, standing in the air, and vaguely visible blue pupils. White-haired devil. Why is he in Hell's Kitchen? Just when Gwen was about to go to confirm whether this was the white-haired devil, she suddenly discovered that the white-haired devil standing high in the sky had suddenly disappeared. Gwen immediately used the spider thread to reach the top of the tallest building nearby, looking for traces of the white-haired devil. With Spider-Woman's eyesight, she immediately spotted the white-haired demon that flashed every 30 seconds. Has he awakened a new ability? Gwen realized something immediately and couldn't help but said in shock. She was shocked and deeply envious at the same time. After becoming Spider-Woman, Gwen was very happy. She gained extraordinary abilities that ordinary people did not have. But just after she became Spider-Woman, she met the white-haired demon. The white-haired demon was not very strong at first, but it became stronger at an unimaginable speed in the following time, and she was still the original step forward. The most important thing is that her abilities are simple and violent, and except for the spider sense, she is not cool at all. And the white-haired demon's abilities, the azure black hole, and the black-red singularity, are much more powerful than hers in terms of power and performance. This made Gwen very frustrated, and she became curious about the white-haired demon, the first person to know Spider-Woman's true appearance. Why is he so strong? What is he doing at this time? Use teleport continuously, with an interval of 30 seconds each time. This time is enough for him to recover from the injuries caused by the teleport, and to fully explore the surrounding environment without missing anything. As time passed, Su-Mu searched most areas of Hell's Kitchen. Having gained nothing, he gradually developed a bad feeling. Could it be that the Kingpin wasn't in Hell's Kitchen? But after teleporting again, a few seconds later, a bright smile appeared on Su-Emu's face, and then he took another step forward and arrived in front of a luxurious private club. This private club store is extremely luxurious and is built in the best area of Hell's Kitchen. This area is located on the edge of Hell's Kitchen. Compared with deeper locations, the streets are cleaner and the security is better, so that rich people who cherish their lives dare to come here and have fun. The door of the club is spacious and grand, and all the people coming in and out are gentlemen in leather and leather shoes, which is incompatible with Su-Mu, who wears spacious casual clothes. When Su-Mu wanted to get closer, 2 security guards in suits at the gate came forward and stretched out their hands to signal Su-Mu to stop. Sir, this store is a high-end private club. You need to present an invitation letter and formal attire to enter. After finishing speaking, the security guard approached Su-Mu and whispered in front of him. Yellow-skinned monkey, get back here, this is not where you should be. Su-Mu stopped and clearly caught the undisguised sarcasm in the security guard's eyes. He couldn't help but be a little curious. His photo had been in the most prominent places in major newspapers and news for a long time. Could it be that the security guard in front of him didn't recognize him and instead dared to mock him? However, he had no intention of explaining. Instead, he smiled brightly at the security guard who offended him, and then said slowly, Please let me know, I'm looking for Kingpin. The security guard was stunned and finally couldn't help laughing. Ha ha ha, who do you think you are? Dye your hair white and then wear matching sunglasses. Do you really think you are a white-haired demon? Quote. Another security guard also mocked. It seems we have to give this guy some color and make him sober up. A woman in gorgeous clothes who was just about to enter the club had her arm around an old man who was at least 70 years old. When she saw this scene, she laughed at Su-mu. Husband, look, this yellow-skinned monkey actually wants to enter a private club. Doesn't he know that only a big shot like you can enter? Hey, throw him out quickly, don't taint our eyes. Quote. The old man on the side looked at Su-mu with disgust, and then said sternly to the two security guards. Get rid of him quickly. The two security guards who were angry with Su-mu immediately lowered their heads and said in a low voice. Don't worry, guest, we will deal with him right now. Su-mu looked at this scene and smiled slightly. Under the gaze of 6 eyes, Jin was locked by him. There was no possibility of escape, so he had the leisure to play with the few people in front of him at this time. Seeing several security guards punching him and hitting his face, Su-mu remained unmoved and watched the funny scene in front of him with a smile. Suddenly, the whole place fell silent. When the fists of the two security guards landed 10 centimeters in front of the white-haired man, they immediately stopped and could not move forward, as if they were blocked by an invisible barrier. The faces of the two security guards who punched Su-mu turned pale to the naked eye. The gorgeous woman and old man on the side also realized what the scene in front of them represented. He is really a white-haired devil. And not just an imitator. The gorgeous girl screamed in fear, thinking of the offense she had just committed against the white-haired demon. She quickly ran away, leaving the trembling old man beside her. The old man who was left on the spot lost his legs and lay on the ground. The turbid liquid slowly flowed out from his crotch, giving off a smell. He saw the white-haired demon in front of him stretched out his palm towards the fleeing woman, and then shook it slightly. The woman who had fled dozens of meters was crushed to the ground by the huge gravity. With the crackling sound of bones and the piercing wail of pain, she was slowly eased. Slowly press it into a meat paste. Su-mu retracted her hand, smiled kindly at the two security guards who were stunned in front of her, and repeated. I'm looking for Kingpin. Then I saw 2 security guards running towards the hall immediately and yelled. I will inform you right now, please wait for a moment. Just when they were about to walk through the door and thought they had escaped, they suddenly heard the devil's whisper from behind them. Forget it, I'd better go by myself. A terrifying repulsive force came from behind, and the 2 security guards were immediately knocked away by the huge force. They were like 2 cannonballs smashing into the private club, hitting several unlucky people, splashing scarlet blood mist, and died. Then Su-mu walked into the clinic door and suddenly poked her head out from behind the door. I'm sorry, I almost forgot about you. The aristocratic old man outside the door had no time to stop the smile on his face that had survived the disaster, and was twisted into twists by the terrifying gravity. Blood stains flowed from his body and continued to spread. After doing the last thing, Su-mu finally walked into the club and smiled brightly at the many gun-wielding gang members waiting in front. Hello, I'm looking for Kingpin. Seeing the white-haired devil breaking into the club, many gang members with guns hesitated to shoot, as if it was not them who were armed at this time, but the young man with a bright smile in front of him. They naturally knew the terror of the white-haired devil. Whether it was from the 3 news articles that shocked the world before, or from the 2 security guards who had just flown into the club at high speed and killed several unlucky people, and now only the broken bodies of the 2 security guards were left. Show the power of the white-haired devil with absolute facts. Seeing no response from the many gang members in front of him, Su-mu sighed and lowered his head slightly. His face was covered by the shadow of the light, and he could only see the corners of his mouth gradually showing a cold smile. Then I'll find him myself. Hearing this, one of the gang members could no longer bear the pressure, pressed the trigger, and started shooting wildly. Others heard the sudden piercing sound of gunfire and were so stimulated in their tense state that they subconsciously shot at Su-mu as well. Countless ammunition flew towards Su-mu like a curtain of rain, but stopped within 10 centimeters of him, unable to get any closer to him. After this strange phenomenon appeared, a gang member immediately recognized this as the white-haired devil's signature ability. No lower limit technique. No, the white-haired demon cannot be defeated at all. I don't want to die. Quote. He could no longer face the white-haired devil. Faced with the fear of death, he dropped his rifle and tried to escape. Since the first gang member threw his gun and ran away, other gang members immediately followed. They knew to some extent the terror of the white-haired devil from the news, and naturally knew that in the eyes of the white-haired devil, they were no different from ants. Regardless of the quantity, it can be easily crushed to death. Seeing the many gang members fleeing in all directions, Su-mu grinned. A huge repulsive force suddenly erupted from around his body, and the yellow bullets floating around returned faster than when they came. Countless bullets exceeded the speed of sound, hitting each body with a harsh sound of breaking through the air. In just an instant, most of the gang members were killed by random bullets, while the remaining gang members lay on the bright, glowing floor and kept howling. Su-mu couldn't hear these screams, so she held her hand forward slightly. The technique reverses. Kang. Quote. A blue black hole emerged out of thin air, attracting everything nearby. The black hole created by Kang at level 3 was once again enlarged several times compared to the one at level 2. At this time, the size of the black hole seemed to have grown from the size of a basketball to the size of 1 meter, and the attraction it exuded was also several times stronger than before, sucking in all the surrounding gang members who were dead or incapacitated. The screams all around stopped immediately. Su-mu also couldn't bear to see the tragic scene full of blood in front of him, so a 1-meter-sized blue black hole quickly rotated around him, attracting everything nearby. The luxurious club that originally stood there disappeared in an instant, and was replaced by a huge circular pit. On the luminous floor that was still intact in the center of the circular pit, the white-haired demon straightened his back, put his right hand in his pocket, and held his smooth white hair with his left hand and moved it upward, revealing his exquisite blue eyes. But at this time, those eyes were full of coldness, and the customers who had luckily escaped in the distance could not stop trembling all over. They heard the white-haired devil in the ruins say with satisfaction. It's still so comfortable. Sure enough, I'm still too kind and don't want to see the tragedy in the world. Surviving customers. Do you want to listen to what you are saying? Su-mu continued to move forward. According to the detection of 6 eyes, Jin Bing had already escaped for some distance, but it was not difficult to catch up with his current speed. Taking one step forward, the figure disappeared from the spot and walked through hundreds of meters of ruins to the street. He used the magic technique to reverse H to create a repulsive force equal to gravity, and walked in the void in the sky. Every step he took appeared dozens of meters away. After a moment, he saw a speeding armored car in the distance. The 6 eyes emitted a bright aura, which could be seen clearly even in the dazzling sunlight. Then he stretched out his palm to make a pistol gesture, pointed his index finger in the direction of the armored car, and whispered softly with the flash of black and red singularities. Thumping. Kingpin was sitting behind an armored car. Even an armored car made of special materials that could withstand rocket attacks could not give him any sense of security. Facing an opponent who was like a god, if it weren't for his iron will that had been tempered for many years, he might have collapsed by now. But he is not immortal after all. Even if he knows it is almost impossible to escape, he will definitely try. Moreover, they are not absolutely powerless to resist. Jin Bin looked behind him with deep eyes. I just hope that the device that I spent billions of dollars on can work, otherwise. The armored car speeds up, with 2 rows of propellers extending from the rear of the car, driving forward at a faster speed. Just when Su-mu was about to deal with Jin Bin directly, he suddenly heard the harsh sound of electricity coming from his ears, and then found that the energy in his body suddenly lost control and became chaotic, and he fell from a height of tens of meters. What happened? However, on the way down, with the exquisite control of the 6 eyes, he immediately regained control of the energy in his body. When he was about to stand in the void again, he suddenly found 2 figures rushing towards him from 2 different directions. Ha ha ha, white-haired devil, you are just an ordinary person after losing your mutant abilities. I, the Prowler, won the achievement of killing the white-haired demon. Quote. On the other side, a beautiful shadow flew over with spider silk and shouted loudly. Careful. Seeing this scene, Su-mu immediately realized what had happened, and then showed a smile full of evil. He did not continue to use repulsion to stand in the air, but allowed his body to fall naturally. And at the same time, he discovered that the armored car in the distance stopped at the same time, and looked at its appearance and wanted to return. Then give them a surprise. After Spider-Woman saw the white-haired demon, she quickly rushed in his direction. Just when she was about to get close, she suddenly found the Prowler in a black tights and suddenly pressed a button behind the white-haired demon. The sound of electric current immediately resounded throughout the surrounding area. The body of the white-haired demon, who looked like a god in the sky, suddenly stopped, and the black-red singularity that was about to be launched also disappeared and fell rapidly downwards. It was obvious that the harsh sound of electricity just did something to the white-haired demon to cause this situation. Then she discovered that the Prowler used sharp claws to rush towards the white-haired demon, who had no resistance at this time, and his tone was full of cruelty. So she sped up and stepped forward, kicking the Prowler away when he was about to kill the white-haired demon. Then she held Sumu in her arms while panting violently. Only then did she relax and say, "Fortunately, I almost missed it." At the same time, Sumu, who felt the two soft balls, also breathed a sigh of relief in her heart. Fortunately, the fun almost ended. Gwen carefully placed Sumu on the ground and asked with concern, "What happened to you? Why did you suddenly fall from the sky?" Sumu showed off her exquisite acting skills, controlling her body with the exquisite control of her 6 eyes, and her expression and body details were flawless. No, why did my mutant powers suddenly disappear?" The wanderer in the distance laughed loudly when he heard Suemu's helpless words. "Ha ha ha, you didn't expect that we purchased a mutant suppression device secretly developed by the military. At this time, your mutant abilities will be suppressed for at least an hour. In this hour, you are no different from ordinary people. 1 bullet can kill you. And I, the Prowler, am the one who kills the demon." Quote. As soon as he finished speaking, the Prowler turned into an afterimage and rushed towards Sumu at high speed, but was stopped by Gwen. Seeing Spider-Woman blocking him, Prowler said with a cold expression, "It's you, Spider-Woman, again. This time I'll kill you and the white-haired demon at the same time." The next moment, the two of them were fighting together. There was no winner for a short period of time, but it was only temporary. Several figures in the distance were rushing towards the place at high speed. They should also be Jinbin's men. Sumu saw several familiar figures among them. The supervillain Tombstone has invulnerability and the ability to heat up his body, the supervillain Scorpion, who wears high-tech armor like the Prowler, and the female Dr. Octopus, who welds 4 high-tech mechanical tentacles behind her. Gwen also saw the 3 supervillains coming. She kicked the Prowler away, used spider silk to wrap him around a street lamp, then hugged Sumu and fled away from him while swinging the spider silk. "How long do you have to recover?" Spider-Woman tried to get rid of the supervillain behind her, but she needed to avoid the shooting of a large number of gang members who suddenly appeared, so she could not keep the distance but got closer and closer. Hearing Gwen's words, Sumu smiled nonchalantly. "I don't know. It will probably take a while, but it may be restored in the next moment." Hearing Suemu's unreasonable words, Gwen was so angry that she had the idea of leaving the white-haired demon behind. However, thinking that the white-haired demon had saved her, the kind-hearted Gwen still did not do so. She said angrily, "Can you be serious? If they catch up, you will be dead." Sumu was a little innocent. "What I said is true. The mutant suppression device can only suppress Suemu's abilities as a mutant. Except for energy absorption, other abilities have not disappeared and can still be used. And the energy absorption is also recovering at an extremely fast speed, and it can be fully recovered in about 5 minutes, far less than the hour," the Prowler said. So what he and Gwen said was not wrong. He can use his abilities at any time. Doesn't this mean that he can recover at any time? Of course, the kind-hearted Gwen didn't know that she was being teased by the hateful white-haired man. At this time, she had no extra energy to communicate with Sumu, because all the villains were chasing her. Laugh. The Prowler broke free from the shackles of the spider silk with the help of his companions. At this time, he, who was the fastest, caught up and used a flying knife to cut off Spider-Woman's spider silk, so that Sumu and Sumu fell to the ground and were killed. Surrounded by many super-villains. Seeing so many super-villains, Gwen suddenly felt a lot of pressure, but she was still optimistic. "Oh, the situation is very bad, I don't know what to do." Sumu, who was held in Gwen's arms, cheered. "Believe in yourself, you can do it." If it doesn't work, I still have everything. Quote. Before Gwen could say anything, Prowler mocked. White-haired devil, it's hard for you to protect yourself when you lose your mutant ability, and you still want to protect others. You can't protect anything. Quote. Scorpion, who was wrapped in exoskeleton armor, looked at Sumew with a mocking look on his face. Is he the white-haired devil? Nothing more than that. Little spider, white-haired boy, it's time to die. Quote. Several mechanical limbs of Scorpion's lower body stretched out at the same time, and then rushed towards Sumew and Sumew. The tail needle behind him raised up and stabbed Gwen suddenly, trying to kill her and Sumew together. Just as Gwen escaped the attack of the Scorpion's tail needle, she was hit by Dr. Octopus's mechanical tentacles and was knocked away. Sumew, who she had been hugging, was also knocked away and separated from her. Sumew used the physical strength of an ordinary person to land smoothly, then immediately stood up and looked at the distant sky. In the sight of Lu Yan, a helicopter had been hovering 10 kilometers away from here. At that distance, even with LV-36I vision, he could only see blurry shadows. If Sumew hadn't intuitively told him that he was being monitored by a distant aircraft at this time, he might not have been able to detect it at all. Sumew gradually became impatient. The helicopter had been staying there for a long time, and there was a high probability that it would not come closer. Gwen, who was attacked by several super-villains from a distance, was at an absolute disadvantage and was unable to take care of Sumew. The Prowler came to Sumew and smiled ferociously at him. The arrogant white-haired devil is going to die here. I think today will be the fourth news that shocks the world. Seeing that Sumew didn't even take him seriously at this moment, but looked far away, this feeling of being ignored made the Prowler extremely angry. How arrogant, but it's better this way. Your screams will make me more happy later. The Wanderer rushed towards Sumew, but before he could get close, Gwen appeared again and stood in front of Sumew. Maybe you don't have a chance to kill him. Looking at the injuries on Gwen's body, the Wanderer showed a cruel smile. No, you will all die here. A purple light flashed under the Wanderer's feet, and his already amazing speed increased again, rushing towards Sumew and the others. Gwen wanted to pull Sumew to dodge, but the previous injuries suddenly flared up, and her body froze for a moment. In this moment of delay, the Wanderer appeared in front of her and stabbed her abdomen with his sharp claws. Go to hell. The claws were too close to Gwen, and even with Spider-Woman's agility, it was impossible to dodge. Gwen could only watch the claws approach, about to pierce her abdomen, and then kill her and the white-haired demon together. But at this moment, Gwen suddenly felt her eyes blurred, and she found a tall figure blocking her, and then she heard an impatient magnetic voice from the front. It seems that it will not get closer. It's boring, wasting my time. Then Gwen saw the white-haired man who suddenly appeared and stretched his hand forward, and the body of the Wanderer immediately stopped in front of him. The white-haired man gently waved his arms, and a strong repulsive force burst out. Everything in front of him, including the body of the Wanderer, was blown away by the huge force. Gwen stared blankly at the Wanderer who was crushed into meat paste by the huge force, and looked at the fan-shaped ruins dozens of meters long in front of him. She swallowed unconsciously, and finally heard the man in front of her muttering. Tisk tisk tisk, our Kingpin and the helicopter starting to escape. This won't do. It seems that we have to speed up to deal with these people. The Scorpion, the female Dr. Octopus and the Tombstone in the distance were stunned, wondering what was going on. Wasn't the white-haired devil's mutant ability temporarily suppressed? Why did he recover in less than an hour? Among them was a Tombstone with invulnerability, and his whole body couldn't stop trembling. He looked at the huge fan-shaped ruins in front of him, at the body of the Prowler that had no human form in it, and at his right arm that disappeared just because of the aftermath of the attack. Ah! After realizing it, he immediately screamed in pain, and a large amount of blood spurted out from his broken arm. His previously indestructible body could not give him any sense of security. He instinctively wanted to escape from here, but after taking a step, he found that one of his legs had also disappeared. The next moment, his body lost balance and fell to the ground. The female Dr. Octopus and Scorpion who were farther away did not suffer much damage, but were scratched by scattered stone fragments. But they seemed to be seriously injured and did not dare to move at all. They stared blankly at the scene in front of them, looking at the Tombstone whose body was crippled only by the aftermath of the attack. As supervillains who work for Kingpin together, even if their relationship is not friendly, they still recognize Tombstone's strength. His invulnerable body and the superpower of high temperature on the body allow him to exert extremely strong fighting ability, even they can't do anything to him. However, how could it become such a tragic situation after just being hit by the aftermath? What about your superpower? What about that indestructible body that makes you proud? As smart people, they immediately understood the current situation. Facing the white-haired demon with mutant abilities, they were no match at all. Escape. Run away quickly. It's too late if you don't escape. However, just when the female Dr. Octopus and Scorpion turned around, they stopped again and did not dare to move at all. Gwen looked at the scene in front of her. Even though she had seen it in the Global Daily Report, after being there, she could feel the majesty of this power even more. Is this the true strength of the white-haired devil? What exactly has he experienced during this time, and why has he grown so quickly? Just when she wanted to ask the white-haired devil a question, she suddenly found that the white-haired devil came in front of him, put his hand on her head, and the magnetic voice came from him at the same time. "Thank you, little spider, leave the rest to me." As soon as she finished speaking, Gwen saw the white-haired demon step forward, disappear from the place, and instantly appeared in front of the female Dr. Octopus and Scorpion who were trying to escape, showing them a bright smile. "You two, you haven't returned the gift yet. Don't leave in a hurry." Before he finished speaking, Sumu stretched out his palm towards Scorpion, and powerful attraction radiated from his palm, attracting Scorpion. The Scorpion looked desperate, then showed determination, using its sharp joints and sharp tail needles to attack the white-haired demon at the same time. Even if he is destined to die, he will make the white-haired devil pay the price. Now that the white-haired demon has just recovered, he may not be able to perfectly control his mutant abilities. This is his chance. And his tail needle and arthropods are highly poisonous. As long as he hits the white-haired demon, there may be a glimmer of hope. However, he only felt a blue stream of light flashing past his eyes, and then he discovered that the white-haired demon was holding a huge tail needle and stabbing towards his head rapidly. Looking at the body again, the tail needle and 6 thick-jointed limbs at the tail disappeared from the armor, appearing scattered around, piercing into the surrounding ground. The largest tail needle among them appeared in the hands of the white-haired demon, and the needle with a cold light was aimed at his head. Just as he was about to say something, his head was penetrated, and a large amount of blood spurted out, floating in the air. 10 centimeters in front of Sumu stood still. After dealing with the Scorpion, Sumu looked at the female Dr. Octopus and found that while he was dealing with the Scorpion, she had arrived several hundred meters away. This distance is extremely difficult even for a sniper rifle to hit, but for him with 6 eyes, it couldn't be easier. A coin was thrown out by him, and then floated in front of his index finger. Black and red lightning burst out from the fingertips, giving the coin an initial speed several times the speed of sound. Before the coin melted due to air friction, it instantly hit the female Dr. Octopus on the back. The coin with powerful kinetic energy enveloped her with a sonic boom, cutting her body off at the waist. After continuing to fly for hundreds of meters, she completely melted in the air. Then Sumu took another step forward and appeared in front of the tombstone crawling on the ground. When the tombstone looked up tremblingly, he saw a shadow falling from the sky, and his consciousness immediately turned into nothingness. After crushing the head on the tombstone, Sumu turned around and smiled brightly at Gwen, stepped out and appeared dozens of meters in the air, and walked toward the armored car in the distance in the void. On top of the armored car, Jin Bin sat there with a gloomy expression. The mutant suppression device that cost billions of dollars to purchase can only suppress the white-haired demon for a few minutes. Is the white-haired demon too powerful? Or was he deceived? Suddenly, he saw a young man with white hair appearing in the armored car in front, smiling brightly at him. It's the white-haired devil. The next moment, the expensive armored car hit the white-haired demon that suddenly appeared and stopped immediately. Under the pressure of the huge kinetic energy, the front half of the car quickly shriveled up. The driver only had time to scream, before he was crushed and a large amount of blood spattered on Kingpin's face. Then he heard a sharp sound of metal tearing. Crack. The white-haired man used his hands to tear the entire armored train in half, and his body was exposed to the devil. Jin Bing immediately picked up his pistol and shot at the white-haired devil, but the bullet and the driver's blood splattered all stayed in front of the white-haired devil and could not move forward. Seeing this scene, he calmed down completely and said in a low voice, "I was wrong about what happened before. I am willing to use all my assets in exchange for my life." But the white-haired devil did not respond, and still slowly approached. Every footstep seemed to step on Jin Bing's heart, causing his heart to stop. Jin Bing was obviously more anxious, and immediately continued, "If I die, all those assets will be frozen, and you can't get them at all. That's tens of billions of dollars in assets." But the footsteps didn't stop until they came to him. Then he saw a white palm stopped in front of him. Before he wanted to say anything else, a terrifying pressure came from it, directly plunging him into eternal darkness. A large amount of unknown flesh and blood floated around Su Emu's body, and then was pushed around by the huge repulsive force, dyeing a large area nearby red. Su Mu grinned. "If you have the obelisk, infinity gems, frost box, eternal spear, eternal flame or Eye of Agamotto, I can torture you and let you live longer. But no matter how much money a mortal has, it is useless to me." Then he took another step forward, disappeared on the spot, and flew towards the helicopter in the distance at high speed. On a helicopter in the distance, several scientific researchers wearing white research uniforms continued to record the precious data they had just observed. These data are important weapons against the white-haired devil in the future, so they must not be lost. The leading researcher dialed the communication, and the communication was immediately connected. An impatient, hoarse voice came from the other side. "How about it?" The researcher's tone revealed excitement that could not be concealed. "Colonel Stryker, it worked. The mutant suppression device is also effective against the white-haired demon. Although it can only suppress him for a few minutes, as long as it is improved, this time will be greatly increased. At that time, as long as the mutant suppression device is used on the white-haired devil, he will become an ordinary mortal for a long time." Quote, Okay. Upon hearing the news, Stryker was overjoyed, and even a stiff smile appeared on his face that had not changed for thousands of years. It seems that the nuclear bomb plan does not need to be implemented. To deal with a mere white-haired devil, the mutant suppression device is enough. Transfer all the data and start developing a device to suppress the white-haired devil from now on. Quote, Yes. At this moment, Stryker suddenly heard a loud noise coming from the other side. What happened? Then he heard the researcher's trembling voice. Quick, turn on the mutant suppression device and give us time to escape. Colonel Stryker, the white-haired devil is coming after him. Quote, What? Upon hearing the news, Stryker looked stunned and couldn't believe what he heard. The white-haired devil can actually spot a helicopter 10 kilometers away. What does this mean? This means that the white-haired devil's perception is more terrifying than he imagined, and he can observe things at least 10 kilometers away. This also means that the nuclear bomb plan has almost completely failed, because at the speed of the white-haired devil, as long as a nuclear bomb is discovered 10 kilometers away, it can be easily avoided. Nuclear bombs will no longer threaten him. When did the white-haired demon awaken his senses again? Is there no limit to his abilities? Don't worry, just send the data over. You have a mutant suppression device. It's not difficult to escape. Stryker comforted the researchers and wanted them to quickly send information about the white-haired demon. His main purpose is still for those data. After the data is obtained, these researchers lose their value. But what he said was what he was thinking. Researchers with mutant suppression devices can easily escape as long as they can temporarily suppress the white-haired demon's mutant abilities. However, a desperate shout came from the headset. He stopped 5 kilometers away. At such a long distance, today's version of the mutant suppression device cannot affect him at all. No, he's attacking us, that weird black-red singularity. After a scream, the communication was immediately cut off. Stryker was silent. It seemed that the white-haired demon had discovered the existence of the mutant suppression device, and then used black and red magic points to kill the researchers from a distance. This also means that the white-haired demon will be prepared for the suppression device in the future. But this also means another thing, that is, the white-haired demon is still affected by the suppression device. As long as his ability is successfully suppressed, the white-haired demon will no longer be a threat. Looking at the transmission-completed letters on the screen in front of him, Stryker showed a ferocious smile. Continuously using the magic technique to teleport, he approached the helicopter at high speed. Not long after, the helicopter appeared in Suemu's field of vision again. He did not get close to the helicopter because he guessed that there should also be a mutant suppression device on the helicopter. Although after his ability was suppressed, he with 6 eyes remembered the energy flow in his body when he was suppressed, and could remanipulate the energy in his body at the moment when his mutant ability was suppressed and get rid of the suppression, but he still did not intend to approach the helicopter. Create a weakness for yourself, and then wait for the enemy to take advantage of this weakness to attack you. The enemy's reaction will be very pleasant. Suemu stopped in the air. At this time, this position was still about 5 kilometers away from the helicopter. It was also the farthest range of the suppression device that he could observe using his 6 eyes. Stretching out his palm, he put his index and middle fingers together and pointed at the helicopter. The magic power started to work, and a black and red singularity quickly formed in front of him. As the finger was slightly raised, the terrifying black-red singularity flew out at high speed, forming a black-red ray visible to the naked eye in the air. The technique reverses. Terrifying black-red rays pierced the sky, leaving a strange-colored meteor trail in the sky, followed by a loud noise that broke the sound barrier and enveloped the entire New York. Almost everyone looked towards the sky at the same time, and they saw a gorgeous black meteor carrying death, flying straight towards a poor and helpless helicopter. Boom! Under the gaze of everyone who could see this scene, the helicopter was instantly shattered by the terrifying black meteor and turned into an inconspicuous fire. And the black meteor continued to fly forward, piercing the air, splitting the clouds, and sinking into the countryside outside the city, splashing huge amounts of dust. Finally, the dust slowly dispersed, leaving a huge circular depression. It's the white-haired devil, it's the white-haired devil. People immediately recognized the strongest mutant who had dominated the news recently, and the whole city fell into chaos. The white-haired demon can actually fly. Is there really no limit for a level 5 mutant? His strength seems to have become stronger again. Where is the government? Where is the military? Didn't they say they have formulated a perfect plan to deal with the white-haired demon? In an empty warehouse in New York, you can see the black meteor and the white-haired demon standing in the air. North Star stared at the scene in front of her blankly, and immediately recalled the scene when she met the white-haired demon before. The extremely cold eyes released an unparalleled sense of oppression. Even though her ability was already powerful among mutants, she still had no power to resist the white-haired demon. In particular, his ruthless words made her remember deeply, and let her know from that time that if she wanted to make mutants rise, she could not rely on others but only on herself. At this moment, the companions around Polaris exclaimed, "Look, that's the mutant ability of the white-haired demon. Wow, so cool, is this the strongest mutant at present? We must also work hard to help the great white-haired demon in the future battle with humans. Under his leadership, mutants will eventually gain freedom." Polaris hesitated, not knowing whether to tell the cruel facts to the companions around him. In front of the white-haired demon, even if they are all mutants and the same kind, but they are just ants like ordinary humans. That man, he stood in the sky, looking down on everything. At the same time, Suemu, who was standing in the void high in the sky, heard the system prompt. Spell reversal. Experience +1. Congratulations, your skill spell reversal, has been upgraded. Spell reversal. LV2 1/300th. The repulsive force is generated with He as the center. The minimum power is twice that of Kang, and the maximum output is positive infinity, which is similar to a small supernova. A large amount of information poured into Suemu's mind, and his experience in using the reversal technique, increased rapidly. Suemu once again used the spell to reverse, and a black-red singularity formed above the index finger. The size grew from the size of a mung bean to the size of a table tennis ball, and the repulsive force it emitted also increased several times. Looking at the black-red singularity on his fingertips, Suemu couldn't help but miss the Hulk and hate him before. Of all the fights he's been through, they have the best feel. That solid feeling of endurance is something he can never forget. Wait a minute, I overheard the conversation between Coulson and Nico Fury. A strange crater appeared in New Mexico, and a hammer that no one can pick up is located in the center of the crater. Doesn't this mean that the hammer god has been exiled by Odin and has come to Earth at this time? Presumably the hammer god who has regained his power should be more resistant to being slapped, while the destroyer armor controlled by Loki is even more resistant. They will be good targets. Quote. The corner of Suemu's mouth curved into a subtle arc. New fun is here. Find Spider-Woman again. She is no longer where she was, but on a tall building. Although Spider-Woman didn't help him, he would never be in danger, but he was still very grateful to Spider-Woman Suemu for helping him. Without her help, the fact that he was immune to the mutant suppression device would have been impossible to hide, which would undoubtedly have taken a lot of the fun out of him. Thank you for your help. I will give you a gift next time we meet to express my gratitude. Gwen's curiosity was aroused by Suemu's words. She was curious about what the gift of the powerful white-haired demon would be. Then she heard the charming Mr. Devil smile mysteriously. Keep looking forward to it, I believe you will really like it. Gwen wanted to say something more, but then she saw the white-haired devil step out and disappear in front of her, disappearing without a trace. It wasn't until the white-haired devil disappeared from her front that she remembered that she had just forgotten to ask the white-haired devil why he became stronger so fast. Then we'll wait until the next time we meet. I'm really looking forward to it. Gwen hummed a song, jumped down from the tall building, and left in the same way while hanging on spider silk. Suemu was not in a hurry to go to New Mexico immediately, but came to a high-end restaurant to taste the food. At level 3, he can't use energy to replace food, but he should be able to do it at level 4. However, even if he can use energy to maintain life functions, he will not refuse to eat. Eating is undoubtedly a great enjoyment. With Suemu's current appetite, it would cost tens of thousands of dollars to eat in a high-end restaurant. However, this money was just a drop in the bucket to him now, and he didn't take it seriously. As his strength gradually becomes stronger, it becomes easier and easier for him to obtain money. After walking out of the restaurant, Suemu was about to head to New Mexico to find the hammer god for fun, when he suddenly found several familiar figures in front of him. There is a slight difference in the appearance of these people compared with those in the movie. If their features were not obvious and they were gathered together, Suemu might not be able to recognize them. Yes, the people standing in front of Suemu and blocking his path were none other than members of the X-Men. Among them was Professor X, a kindly old man in a wheelchair who had extremely strong telepathic abilities. Behind him, helping him push the wheelchair, was Cyclops wearing special sunglasses, and beside him were the red-haired Phoenix and the white-haired Storm. X-Men, what do you want from me? Suemu asked in confusion. Apart from having the same enemy, Stryker, he had no interaction with the X-Men. Professor, he couldn't sense the consciousness of the young man in front of him at all, just like an ant standing on an elephant and unable to see the elephant. Because it is an endless land to it. The moment he saw the white-haired demon, Professor X understood that the young man in front of him was a more terrifying existence than Chin. Even when facing Chin, he could sense the existence of Chin's spirit, but when facing the white-haired demon, his ability completely failed. Upon hearing Suemu's question, Professor X showed a kind expression, and then said slowly, "Child, I would like to invite you to join Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters. The children in this school are mutants just like you. If you join the school, you will never be alone again. And you are now in a very dangerous situation. The government and the military have formulated a plan against you. Even if your mutant ability is very strong, you are still no match for them. Join us and the X-Men will negotiate with the government and the military to help you cancel your wanted order." Quote. The three Cyclops people around looked at Suemu confidently. They were all sure that if the white-haired demon was not a fool, he would definitely agree to join Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters. First, they are all mutants. They know what it feels like to be disgusted by others around you after becoming a mutant, and they know the loneliness of being abandoned by the whole world. Mutants crave their own kind. Second, the white-haired demon was wanted by the government and the military. Although he was very powerful, he was definitely not an opponent in the face of the full pursuit of the military and the government, and the attacks of a large number of mutants of different types. When facing the pursuit team sent by Stryker before, the white-haired demon was almost killed. He must have understood this matter. As long as the white-haired demon is brought to Xavier's School for Gifted Youth, the professor will educate him and change his current violent character. By then, the X-Men will have a very powerful fighting force. Cyclops and others are looking forward to that day. However, the response of the white-haired demon shattered their self-righteous fantasy and made them realize that they had never understood the white-haired demon. Sorry, I don't feel lonely, and I'm not interested in joining Xavier's school for gifted youth. Cyclops looked at the white-haired demon in disbelief. He didn't expect him to say such a thing. This was completely incomprehensible to him, who was called a monster by his classmates after awakening his mutant ability. If you don't stay with mutants, won't you be called a monster by others? Won't you be hated by others? And what about the arrest from the military? Even you can't face the attack of so many mutants whose specific abilities are unknown. Then he saw the corner of the white-haired demon's mouth gradually raised an arc, and this arc became bigger and bigger until it became unbridled. Ha ha ha, they insult me, kill. They chase me, kill. They condemn me, still kill. I believe that as the death toll increases, they will gradually realize their mistakes, change their minds, and finally draw such a conclusion. The white-haired demon is an upright and kind legal citizen. Cyclops looked at Sumu in shock. He didn't expect the White Devil to say such a thing. You are such a devil. Phoenix Girl and Storm Girl were equally shocked as they looked at the white demon in front of them, the unbridled smile on his face, and the cold blue eyes, and unknowingly, goosebumps had already spread all over their bodies. This time, they finally understood what the professor said. If the White Devil is left alone, it will eventually cause irreparable consequences. Even though he knew that the White Devil had gradually fallen to the wrong path, Professor, we cannot let him go on, otherwise he will be a walking natural disaster in the near future. Thinking of what is very likely to happen in the future, Professor X suddenly looked serious and said in a deep voice, Sumu, you have entered the wrong path and cannot continue to fall. You have the power to overturn the world. This power should be used on the right path, not just killing. Killing cannot solve the problem, it will only make it more complicated and more anxious, leading to an even more irreversible situation. Quote. Cyclops, Storm and Phoenix all nodded deeply. They very much recognized Professor X's ideas. Peace that can only be maintained by violence is unstable. Only by using peaceful means to make mutants and ordinary people live in peace can such peace last. They have been fighting for this concept, constantly stopping the evil plans of the Brotherhood of Mutants, and establishing the X-Men to fight crime and change ordinary people's stereotypes of mutants. Of course, saving the White Devil from the wrong path is also included, and it has even become the most important goal of the X-Men in the near future. After hearing Professor X's words, Sumu looked thoughtful. Yes, you are right. Peace maintained by violence cannot last long. After hearing Suemu's words, the expressions of Professor. Now that I heard the professor's advice, I immediately woke up. But, suddenly, the white demon in front of him once again showed his familiar ferocious smile, which gave Professor X and the others a bad premonition. Is there another possibility? That is not violent enough or brutal enough. That means strength is far from enough. As long as I am strong enough, just by existing, I can subdue all dissatisfied voices. As long as I stand there, no one dares to say a word no. Then that will be enough, then there will be true peace. Quote. Professor. Among them, the one Sumu paid the most attention to was the Phoenix Girl. There was a flash of scarlet in her eyes. However, the Black Phoenix was still sealed by Professor X, and the Phoenix Girl at this time was far from Suemu's opponent. When the ordinary people around saw this scene, they immediately screamed and fled away. In a short time, only Sumu and the X-Men who were confronting him were left on the street. Facing two level 5 mutants, a level 4 mutant, and an accompanying level 3 little Kurami, Sumu smiled slightly and took a step forward. His blue pupils flashed with aura, and huge repulsive force emanated from him, spreading to the surroundings at extremely high speeds, destroying everything around him. Terrifying dense cracks spread from Suemu's feet, covering dozens of meters around the area. Only a small area in front where the X-Men were located survived. Storm Girl immediately created strong winds and cooperated with Phoenix Girl's telekinesis to resist the huge repulsive force. However, facing such a powerful repulsive force, she could only keep retreating. Seeing this scene, Cyclops immediately took off his special glasses, and two thick laser rays shot out from his pupils, rushing straight towards the arrogant white demon in front. However, the laser beam, which can easily cut steel, suddenly slowed down when it was 10 centimeters away from the White Devil, and could only spread towards the White Devil at an extremely slow speed. Su Mu curiously looked at the laser that was slowly spreading towards her. Sure enough, the unlimited spell could not completely resist the laser attack, at least not the LV2 unlimited spell. However, as the level increases, the unlimited spells will surely be able to easily withstand laser attacks, poison attacks and even space attacks. But at this time, the laser attack still needs to be dealt with. Under the shocked gaze of Cyclops, Su Mu used a palm to cover the path of the laser. After the laser beam spread with difficulty and hit the flesh and blood body, it was unable to penetrate the flesh and blood body. Instead, it moved at a speed visible to the naked eye. Dim it down. What? Cyclops looked at everything in front of him in shock, and even suspected that there was something wrong with his mutant ability. Why can he block my laser with his flesh and blood? The knowledgeable Professor X immediately discovered the problem and... No, he is not forcibly blocking your laser, but absorbing the energy contained in your laser. What? After hearing Professor X's explanation, Phoenix Girl and Storm Girl were even more shocked. Professor, doesn't the White Devil's energy-absorbing mutant ability only absorb a small part of the energy? Why can even Scott's laser be absorbed at this time? Quote. Professor X, who was questioned by them, looked extremely serious. Now there was only one explanation. The mutant ability of the White Devil can become stronger over time, and he will also gain new mutant abilities over time. And his tendency to become stronger seems to have no limit, and the speed is getting faster and faster. Hearing Professor X's analysis, Phoenix Girl and the other two couldn't believe it, but if this explanation was given, everything about the White Devil could be effectively explained. Looking at Su Mu, the tough X-Men actually showed a hint of fear. Is there really such a terrifying mutant ability? Even a level 5 mutant can't do this. At this time, their thoughts gradually unified, that is, no matter how expensive the price is, they must stop the White Devil and pull him into the right path. Because they finally discovered that when the White Devil is completely out of control, the result will not only be a huge disaster, but it is very likely to be the destruction of the world. In a red sea of consciousness, a figure with red hair and red eyes observed the outside world through the eyes of the Phoenix Girl. She stared blankly at the white-haired figure in front of her and listened to Professor X's shocking analysis. The Black Phoenix looked at the White Devil in disbelief. Under Professor X's constant persuasion, she also had the idea of whether she was too extreme, and she also hated her own overly powerful power. But at this moment, she just wanted to say, "What am I? That guy is the real devil, he is too extreme." The power of the spell strengthens the body, the energy absorption absorbs the energy in the laser beam, and the reversal of the spell repairs the constantly damaged palm. With a series of strengthening, Su Mu can use only his flesh and blood to resist the laser beam that can easily penetrate steel. The system prompts kept coming to his ears. Energy point +1. Energy absorption experience +1. Unlimited spell experience +1. Compared to reaching LV3, it is more difficult to gain experience with energy absorption, and the experience of the unlimited spell of level 2 is only LV2. It is rapidly increasing and has reached the edge of upgrading in a short time. Su Mu used his palm to resist the laser, and then took another step forward. The terrifying pressure suddenly surged, and the powerful repulsive force from the reversal of the spell, spread to hundreds of meters around, and a large number of buildings along the way were crushed and collapsed by the powerful repulsive force. Everything disappeared with the Devil's Step. Faced with the sudden surge of repulsive force, even Storm and Phoenix could not resist this huge repulsive force together. The X-Men were immediately knocked out. Even with Phoenix's telekinesis as a buffer, they were still scratched by the scattered stones. Snap! The sound of shoes landing on the ground was still ringing, and the terrifying white-haired demon still did not stop. Even if the defense was rearranged immediately, the huge pressure around them immediately reached the critical point that Phoenix and Storm could hardly resist. Faced with such a huge pressure, it seemed that the defense they had worked hard to arrange would be destroyed by the terrifying repulsion in the next moment, and they would be crushed into powder under the irresistible force. The fallen Cyclops immediately struggled to get up, endured the pain from all over his body, and used all his strength to release laser beams from his eyes, attacking the white-haired demon in front of him. The storm girl on the side did the same. She flew in the air with the help of wind power, constantly summoning powerful thunder to strike the white-haired demon. However, facing an attack more powerful than just now, the white-haired demon, who would have used his hands to block the laser, stopped resisting and grinned at them. Because just now, Su-mu heard the system's prompt. Unlimited spell experience +1. Congratulations, unlimited spell upgraded. Unlimited spell LV3 1/1000th interfere with atomic level matter, dominate space. The closer the object is to the user, the slower it will be, and it will never touch the user. The dazzling thunder and the scorching laser beam suddenly stopped when they were about to hit Su-mu. The scorching laser that was able to move forward slowly just now could no longer move forward, but was expelled at a faster speed. At the moment when the unlimited spell was upgraded, a large amount of information poured into Su-mu's mind, and the range of the unlimited spell expanded rapidly, from the original 10 centimeters outside the body, to 20 centimeters, 30 centimeters, until it stopped when it was 50 centimeters outside the body. Compared to LV2, the range of the unlimited spell was directly increased by 5 times, and the laser attack that could not be completely resisted before could also be easily resisted. At this time, the X-Men could no longer threaten him in the slightest. Seeing this scene, Cyclops said in disbelief. What just happened? Why did my laser suddenly stop working? Just now, his laser could still threaten the white-haired demon, but a few seconds later, it could no longer threaten him at all. Professor X on the side answered his doubts for him. The white-haired demon's defense ability suddenly improved qualitatively, and he has completely ignored your laser attack. Sure enough, my guess was right. His strength is constantly improving with the passage of time. Thinking of this, Professor X immediately realized that they were far from being the opponent of the white-haired demon. If they wanted to bring the white-haired demon back on track, they had to make longer-term plans. So he immediately said, "Child, stop, we have no ill will towards you." But the white-haired demon's footsteps continued, with no intention of stopping at all. Facing huge pressure, the Phoenix girl, who was mainly maintaining defense, was trembling all over, and the wounds of all sizes on her body were bleeding, as if she would no longer be able to resist the attack in front of her in the next moment. And the red color in her pupils, like the fire, became more and more obvious, as if it would burst at any time. Seeing this, Professor X became even more anxious. If Jean lost control at this time, then her battle with the white-haired demon might destroy the whole New York. While comforting Jean, Professor X anxiously said to the white-haired demon in front of him again. "Child, we have no ill intentions. If it makes you unhappy, we will leave immediately." But the white-haired demon's footsteps continued. At this time, even Storm and Cyclops discovered the problem of Phoenix. They looked at the white-haired demon who was constantly oppressing, and saw that the professor was almost unable to suppress Jean, and suddenly showed despair. "I don't know who will win between Jean and the white-haired demon, but they are dead, and the whole New York will no longer exist. I didn't expect that just wanting to win over the white-haired demon to join Xavier's school for gifted youth would cause such a huge disaster." At this time, all of them regretted it, but the disaster was about to happen and could not be stopped at all. They didn't think that with the white-haired demon's previous unscrupulous style of behavior, he would suddenly stop and let them go. However, when they looked desperate, waiting for the Phoenix girl to completely lose control and fight with the white-haired demon, they suddenly discovered that at the moment when the Phoenix girl was completely on the verge of her limit, the white-haired demon actually stopped. The terrifying pressure disappeared instantly, and the white-haired demon stopped attacking at some point and was looking at them coldly. The fear of death enveloped them deeply, making them unable to breathe. Days passed like years in a depressing atmosphere, and there was silence all around. This silence lasted for several minutes. Suddenly, the X-Men saw the white-haired demon in action, and immediately went on full alert to prevent a terrorist attack that might come at any time. However, the scene in front of them shocked them. They saw the white-haired demon who had just looked like he wanted to kill them, took one step and disappeared from the place without a trace. The terrifying crisis was suddenly lifted, which left him a little confused. After all, the white-haired demon had just wanted to kill them, but now he suddenly wanted to consider their invitation. Storm said unconfidently, "Could it be that he was really influenced by the professor?" Professor, it is indeed possible, but the chance is too small. I prefer the second possibility, that the white-haired demon has some kind of crisis-sensing ability, or even the ability to predict the future. He used this power to predict Chin's loss of control, and then left. Quote, after hearing the professor's words, except for Phoenix Girl who fell into a coma due to excessive use of her powers, Storm Girl and Cyclops carefully recalled the details just now, and suddenly found that the professor's guess was more likely. Has he awakened another mutant ability, or did he have it before and only showed it now? Cyclops has never seen mutants exist with so many abilities. The Storm Girl on the side even said, it's really scary. With the speed of the White Devil, if there really is no upper limit, wouldn't it be true that no one can stop him in the near future? After hearing Storm Girl's question, Professor X fell into silence for a long time. He didn't know how to answer Storm Girl's question, so he could only say slowly. Because of this, we should pull him onto the right path. Cyclops on the side suddenly asked, so how do we get him on the right path? When this question was asked, everyone fell completely silent. Above the sky, Sumu was pacing in the air, covering a distance of several hundred meters with one step. In the confrontation with the X-Men just now, there were two reasons why he stopped attacking and chose to leave instead. First, the Phoenix Girl possesses the Phoenix Power. The Phoenix Power is one of the most formidable existences in the Marvel multiverse. It is the embodiment of all life and emotions. As the most ancient power, the complete Phoenix Power can decompose, transform, reorganize, create, and destroy all things at will, and can also distort cause and effect and timeline at will. He can travel to any latitude, dimension, and universe at will without any restrictions. The complete Phoenix Force is a great existence that transcends the almighty universe. Even if the Phoenix Power in Phoenix Girl's body is only a tiny fragment, it is definitely an extremely terrifying power. It can easily make Phoenix Girl a 5th-level mutant, and she is also an extremely powerful existence among 5th-level mutants. Since it was uncertain whether the unlimited spell could block the Black Phoenix's ability to decompose matter, and whether the regeneration rate of the reversal spell was faster than the Phoenix Woman's ability to decompose matter, Sumu still did not take the risk. Second, there will definitely be a conflict between the X-Men and Colonel Stryker. He had asked Tony Stark to find Stryker's whereabouts before, but he may have known that he would be targeted by the White Devil, so Stryker deliberately hid his whereabouts so that even Tony Stark could not find him. Traces. Later, Sumu asked S.H.I.E.L.D. again, and the result was the same. So he plans to rely on the X-Men to lead out Stryker's traces. Stryker, who hates mutants extremely, will definitely take action against the X-Men. The hook has been left, all you have to do is wait for the fish to take the bait. In a remote town in New Mexico, in a restaurant, all the customers looked at a table of strange customers. Just because one of the customers at the table suddenly broke a cup. Although the other companions of that companion immediately apologized, they still attracted the attention of many customers. However, the next moment, the doorbell of the restaurant rang, and a slender figure walked in, diverting all the customers' attention from the rude man to him. Hey man, are you cosplaying the White Devil? One of the chubby guys who was close to the store was attracted by the doorbell. He turned his head and looked behind him. He immediately saw the handsome man with white hair and sunglasses who came in. He was very familiar with this outfit. He was a level 5 mutant. White Devil costume. Because the White Devil's mutant abilities and decorations are extremely cool, and he is extremely well known around the world, many young people continue to try to cosplay with him for various reasons. This little chubby guy was no exception, but he was short in stature and fat in stature, so he couldn't cosplay even a trace of the White Devil's temperament, so he had to give up the attempt. When he saw the handsome man who had just walked into the restaurant, he was extremely envious. This guy's height, figure and even appearance were very similar to the White Devil. If he hadn't known that the White Devil was in New York at this time, he might have thought that this guy was dude is literally the White Devil. As soon as Sumu entered the door, he saw a little fat man with white hair casting envious eyes at him. Then he heard the little fat man ask him if he was cosplaying the White Devil, and kept praising him for his extremely high level of restoration. Sumu was slightly stunned at first, and then he understood what little fatty meant. Then he didn't know what he thought of, and said to little fatty with a malicious look, "Thanks man, your hair is cool too." After receiving the approval from the cosplay boss in front of him, Xiao Pengdun looked excited and looked at the mirror on the side of the glass. He looked at himself reflected in the glass. He looked so handsome no matter how he looked. I knew that Tom and the others must be jealous of my handsomeness and deliberately mock me. Su Mu. Passing by the narcissistic little fat man, Su Mu walked to the strange table where the cup had just been thrown, and then sat down under the strange looks of Saul and others. Through the description of the plot of Thor 1 and a little help from S.H.I.E.L.D., Su Mu immediately found this town. After resting in a hotel for a day, Su Mu discovered that Saul and others had arrived at the restaurant that had appeared in the plot, and decided to come to look for Saul. After sitting down and seeing Saul and others looking at her in confusion, Su Mu grinned and showed a bright smile. Hi everyone, hello, my name is Su Mu. Of course, others prefer to call me the White Devil. Can I get to know you? Hearing Su Mu's self-introduction, everyone except Thor, the god of thunder, laughed out loud. Among them, Jane Foster, the future girlfriend of the god of thunder, laughed and said, "Are you the White Devil? What a coincidence, we also have a thunder god from Norse mythology here." You think so, Thor? Quote. Facing Jane Foster's teasing, Su Mu did not try to prove anything, but looked at Thor in shock. Oh my god, you are Thor, the legendary son of Odin, and the future king of Asgard. Since landing in the atrium, he has been frustrated repeatedly after losing the power of the god of thunder. No one believed that he was Thor, the god of thunder. At this time, he was suddenly recognized, and Thor suddenly felt that the weak human being in front of him was extremely amiable. Yes, I am Thor, the god of thunder, the son of Odin. You are very discerning. After I find Mjolnir and return to Asgard, I will definitely reward you heavily. The smile on Su Mu's face became even more joyful. Thank you so much, Your Highness Thor. Seeing the stranger who called himself the White Devil chatting happily with Thor, who called himself the god of thunder, the other three people couldn't laugh or cry. A Thor is already troublesome, but here comes another madman. At this moment, Saul recalled Su Mu's self-introduction just now, and thought of the reactions of others around him, so he curiously asked Su Mu. Are you famous? Why are other people in the Midgard looking at you? Before Su Mu could respond, Jane Foster answered on his behalf. He's playing a very famous person. After Jane Foster's explanation, Saul finally understood the concept of cosplay, so he smiled boldly at Su Mu and said, That white demon is too weak. You should cosplay with me, the great god of thunder, Thor. That would be cooler. Su Mu, who was repeatedly patted on the shoulder by the god of thunder, did not say anything, but the smile at the corner of his mouth became deeper. At this moment, a fat middle-aged man at the counter of the restaurant said to his companion, You missed a good show. I heard that a satellite landed in the desert. We were enjoying watching it, and the spies from the investigation bureau came. Jane Foster curiously asked the middle-aged obese man, Excuse me, are you saying that a satellite fell in the desert? Yes, the middle-aged obese man replied. Professor Eric on the other side of the table also looked curious, what do satellites look like? The obese middle-aged man continued to answer. I don't understand satellites, but I know they are very heavy and no one can pick them up. Upon hearing this, Saul immediately stood up, came to the middle-aged man's side, took his shoulder and asked, Where is it? The middle-aged man looked at the impolite Saul behind him and was startled, but he still replied, Go west 50 miles from here. Seeing Saul leaving, he kindly reminded, Don't waste time, the army has already arrived. But Saul ignored him completely and walked straight out of the restaurant. Jane Foster and others also followed, leaving only Su Mu alone. But he didn't follow in a hurry. Instead, he ordered an egg tart and ate it slowly. When he slowly walked out of the restaurant, he happened to see Jane Foster saying to Saul, who wanted to buy a horse at the pet store, Do you want a ride? Just when Saul was sitting in the passenger seat, the two of them suddenly heard a familiar magnetic voice coming from the side, Then can I take a ride? Jane Foster and Saul looked out the window and saw the white-haired young man who was in the restaurant just now using his index finger knuckle to lightly press the window and showing them a bright smile. Oh, of course, but we want to do something extremely dangerous. Are you sure you want to go together? Jane Foster replied. Yes. A mysterious smile appeared on Su Mu's face. I finally met the legendary Thor, God of Thunder, and I am not willing to leave just like that. On the way to their destination, Jane Foster said to Saul, I have never done such a thing, have you? Saul said with a mysterious smile, many times. When he was still about to say something, the white-haired man behind him also replied, yeah, I've done it many times, it's nothing. Saul asked Su Mu curiously, oh, Su Mu, what have you done? I destroyed a gang stronghold alone, and I also faced the encirclement and suppression of the army and mutants and left calmly. I destroyed a huge mechanical armor, and I also fought 2 terrifying monsters. Some time ago, I had a confrontation with the X-Men on the streets of New York and almost destroyed the entire New York. Quote. Thor was stunned for a moment after hearing this. He didn't expect Su Mu's life to be so exciting, but he remembered that Su Mu was cosplaying the white-haired devil at this time. Couldn't these be all the deeds of the white-haired devil? At this time Jane Foster smiled and said, you two are really interesting. One thinks he is a white-haired devil, and the other thinks he is the God of Thunder. Before she could finish speaking, Saul immediately interrupted her. I am the God of Thunder, not that I think I am the God of Thunder. When I get back the power of the God of Thunder, you will know everything. Quote. Seeing the serious expression on Thor's face, Jane Foster recalled the scene where she met Thor for the first time. He fell from the sky. If he was really the God of Thunder who was deprived of his divine power by Odin and exiled to the atrium, well, it's all explained effectively. But just as she was gradually convinced by Saul, Su Mu in the back seat also smiled and nodded. Yes, yes, I believe Thor is the God of Thunder, and I am also a white-haired devil. Jane, you have to believe us. Jane, who had just begun to believe in Saul, immediately shook her head after hearing Su Mu's words. I'm really crazy that I would accompany you to do such a thing. But they stole my lifelong research results, and I will get them all back. Quote. Hearing what the girl from the atrium in front of him said that he liked, Saul immediately smiled and said to her, don't worry, when I get Mjolnir back, I will definitely ask them to return all the materials. Su Mu also nodded deeply, yes, when we get there, we will ask them to hand over everything. Jane Foster smiled slightly, noncommittal. Obviously, she didn't believe it at all. Before they were completely close to their destination, the 3 of them parked the vehicle in a hidden location, then walked to a hillside and used binoculars on the hillside to observe the temporary military base below. At this time, the sky was completely dark, and the surroundings were dark, with only the lights in the base ahead for illumination. After a moment of observation, Saul handed Jane Foster his coat to keep her warm from the cold, and then planned to rush down, but was stopped by Jane Foster, who said with a serious face, you think you can just walk over and take our things and leave? Saul smiled confidently. No, I want to fly out. After saying that, he rushed straight to the military base without waiting for Jane Foster to say anything else. Boom! Suddenly there was a burst of thunder in the sky, accompanied by dazzling lightning that instantly illuminated the whole world. Under the light of lightning, he broke into the military base and defeated one agent after another. Thor finally looked like a god of thunder at this time. Seeing Thor fighting with many agents, Jane Foster was very worried. Suddenly, a cynical and magnetic laugh came from her side. Don't worry, even if Thor really can't get back the power of Thor, I'm here, I will solve all the problems. The worried look on Jane Foster's face froze immediately. Because of the previous preparations, she might still have the fantasy that Thor is the legendary Thor, but she never expected that Su Mu is really the white-haired devil. Not only because the white-haired devil is in New York at this time, it is impossible to appear in New Mexico, but also because the white-haired devil in her impression will not be Su Mu's unreliable appearance. As the strongest level 5 mutant, the white-haired devil who is enough to wipe out a city in a short time has always been a cruel and cold man in the news, and it is impossible to be the funny guy in front of him who always has a smirk. At this time, under their gaze, Thor defeated one agent after another and came to the front of Thor's hammer. Then he confidently held the hammer handle with one hand and wanted to pick up Thor's hammer. However, 1 attempt, no result. 2 attempts, still no result. After continuous attempts, Thor finally gave up and knelt on the ground and roared in despair after using all his strength to pick up Thor's hammer. Seeing this scene, Jane Foster immediately turned around and walked towards the car parked in the distance. It seemed that she wanted to find a rescuer. But she was suddenly stopped by a tall white-haired figure. Even at this time, the white-haired figure still had an unreliable smile on his mouth. Didn't I say that there is still me? Jane Foster had no time to communicate with Sumu at this time. She immediately said, Sumu, we have to leave quickly and find Dr. Eric to bail Thor out, otherwise he will be in danger. But Suemu's smile on his face did not change, and he still stopped her. Just when she was getting impatient, she suddenly found that Sumu in front of her had become strange. It was obviously the same smile, but suddenly it changed from unreliable to chilling coldness, making her feel extremely strange and cold all over. Unreliable Sumu. No, it was the white-haired devil who said to her with a cold face. I told you, there is also me. Under Jane Foster's shocked gaze, Sumu stood up, put his hands in his pockets, and strolled towards the base ahead. He was unhurried, as if the front was not a heavily guarded military base, but a leisurely resort. Because Saul had just trespassed into the base, many agents at this time were even more vigilant. When Sumu just approached, he immediately discovered his traces. So some agents immediately went to stop him, but when they got close to Sumu and saw his appearance clearly, they subconsciously stopped. White hair, blue eyes, he is the White Devil. An agent immediately screamed after discovering it. Compared to civilians, they SHIELD agents know the White Devil better and understand the terror of the White Devil better. Unlike the X-Men, who long for mutants to coexist peacefully with humans, and the Brotherhood of Mutants, who want to eliminate humans and let mutants rule the world, the White Devil is a powerful mutant who has no purpose and does whatever he wants. Because there is no idea and no clear goal, there is no concern and it is impossible to predict its actions. It is the most unstable factor. At this time, another agent asked doubtfully, shouldn't the White Devil be in New York at this time? Could he be some other copycat? Hearing this sentence, all the agents had this doubt, but when the white-haired figure in front approached again, they no longer had the previous thoughts. Sumu took a step, and the powerful pressure from the reversal of the spell, he suddenly burst out, knocking away the intercepting agents around him. The alarm immediately sounded, and the radio calls from the agents kept echoing emergency notifications. The White Devil is coming. The White Devil is coming. Different from the fun of facing Thor, all the agents acted quickly like precision parts, holding firearms in an instant and preparing to meet the enemy. Among them, Hawkeye, who was at a high place when Saul attacked, even lost his previous relaxation when he heard the message in the headset, and looked solemnly towards the front of the base. There was a figure there with his hands in his pockets, moving forward calmly. As he advanced, a huge repulsive force enveloped the surrounding area for tens of meters. Whether it was a temporary building or a well-trained agent, they were all knocked out of the area. Hawkeye stared at the white demon, holding the bowstring with his right hand, wondering whether he should fire it or not. At this moment, perhaps sensing his gaze, the White Devil suddenly looked towards him. There was no emotion in his eyes. It was complete indifference. It was precisely because of this look that Hawkeye completely gave up shooting special explosive arrows. Because he knew that his arrow would not be able to cause any harm to the White Devil, but would instead cost him his life. Any random attack from the White Devil is extremely fatal to him. As a well-trained and powerful agent, he is not afraid of death, but he will never make any sacrifice without any value. In a room covered with surveillance screens, repeated alarms continued to be heard from loudspeakers. Alarm, the White Devil is coming. Alarm, the White Devil is coming. After one of the bald men wearing glasses heard the content of the alarm, a glimmer of light flashed in his eyes. He moved to a hidden corner to send a message to the unknown IP address, and then continued to command. Don't anger the White Devil, we are no match for him, don't make meaningless sacrifices. Agent Coulson, you have had close contact with the White Demon, and now we can only rely on you. Quote. Coulson, who was in an interrogation room and was questioning Saul, suddenly heard an alarm from his headset, and then heard a message from another agent. The White Devil is coming. Why did he come here? Coulson immediately thought of the hammer located here. If there is something here that can attract the White Devil, it must be it. Without much hesitation, Coulson left the interrogation room and rushed outside the base. Saul, who was left in the interrogation room, also heard the alarms constantly coming from around him. White Devil, isn't that the person Sumu has been cosplaying with? Why does he appear here? Suddenly, he thought of something. Thinking of his conversation with Sumu during this period and how he didn't care about breaking into the military base, he immediately realized something. No, he's not really a white devil, is he? So everything he said before was true. Quote, as soon as Coulson came outside, he found that a large number of buildings in front of him had been destroyed by the terrifying repulsion. It was still raining at this time, and there were swamps everywhere. Most of the agents were lying on the ground in a haphazard manner, soaked to the skin and looking miserable. As a result, the figure standing in the void seemed even more abrupt. When the rain came close to him for tens of meters, it was bounced away by invisible repulsion, unable to get close to him. He was walking around in the air, his body not stained by any dust. He was aloof and independent, as if he didn't belong to this world. Coulson saw that the terrifying invisible force field had begun to destroy the temporary main building, and he immediately shouted. Mr. Sumu. Mr. Sumu. I am Coulson. We have communicated in Stark Tower before. Please stop. We welcome you. Sumu, who was standing in the void, heard Coulson's voice, withdrew his repulsion, and stepped forward to Coulson's side. Seeing Sumu appear and stop the attack, Coulson breathed a sigh of relief, and then said, Mr. Sumu, you don't have to make such a fuss. If you want to come, we welcome you. Sumu grinned and chuckled. If he didn't have the power at this time, you would probably have a different attitude, right? He smiled and said, I just said hello just now, and I didn't mean any harm. Looking at the large number of agents falling to the ground in the distance and the temporary base that was half destroyed, Coulson couldn't help but keep complaining in his heart. Is this what you call a greeting? But he also understood that for the White Devil, this level of attack was indeed merciful. Coulson continued to ask, I don't know why you came. Sumu walked towards the inside of the base and responded. You captured my friend, I came to save him. Coulson immediately thought of the man who just called himself Thor, and cold sweat immediately flowed down his forehead. Fortunately, they did not hurt the man, otherwise the situation at this time might really be out of control. After entering the base, Sumu walked straight to the location of Thor's hammer. When he arrived at the meteorite crater, he suddenly found a figure trying to pick up Thor's hammer. But he was obviously not recognized. No matter how hard he tried, he still couldn't pick up the hammer. Seeing this scene, Sumu immediately knew who the person in the strange armor was, so he immediately said to Coulson in a playful way. Loki, you can't pick it up because you are not qualified. Hearing this, Loki immediately turned around and looked behind him. When he saw Sumu, he was stunned. He didn't expect that a mere person in the atrium could detect his existence when he was invisible. Then Loki immediately showed an arrogant look. Even if he was standing below Sumu, he still looked down at him as if he was condescending. Loki opened his arms and said arrogantly, Strong man of the Midgard, you are qualified to meet the king of Asgard. Sumu looked at the arrogant Loki in front of him, and then looked at the character template fusion degree that had reached 56% during this period of time, as well as many powerful skills, and the smile on the corner of his mouth suddenly became interesting. It seems that I have to teach this naughty baby a lesson. Looking at Loki in front of him, Sumu walked towards him without any intention of greeting. Seeing this scene, Loki frowned. He didn't expect that the Midgard man in front of him was so rude and dared to offend the king of Asgard. So he immediately summoned the dagger, wanting to teach the rude Midgard man in front of him a lesson and let the rude Midgard man understand the etiquette of respect and inferiority. He directly aimed towards Sumu with a mocking smile. Humble Midgard man, it seems that I need to teach you how to kneel when facing the king. Seeing that the dagger was about to hit the Midgard man in front of him, Loki sneered. The Midgard man didn't even react to his attack. Even though the dagger was less than 1 meter away from him, he still had no intention of dodging, which made him feel boring. However, just when the dagger was about to approach the Midgard man in front of him, the expression on his face suddenly froze, and he looked at the dagger in front of him that could not move forward any further. What kind of power is this? Just when Loki was about to say something, a strong repulsive force came from the front. The pressure caused by this repulsive force was even stronger than being hit by Thor's hammer head-on. He was suddenly blown away by the terrifying repulsive force. His body first shattered the surrounding glass walls, destroyed the metal brackets along the way, then cut through the rain curtain, broke through the outermost metal fence of the base, and then stopped. Oh, my back. Loki only felt severe pain all over his body, and felt that everything in front of him was a dream. Is this a Midgard person? When did they become so strong? Before he could breathe a sigh of relief, the strong attraction once again attracted him to the white-haired demon in the distance. The terrifying attraction ignored any of his resistance. Even if he stuck the dagger into the ground, the speed of being attracted did not decrease at all. Finally, he returned to the room wrapped in glass again, returned to the Thor's hammer that he had been thinking about, and saw the terrifying white-haired demon again. After catching Loki again, Sumu grinned and thought of something. So he held one of Loki's legs tightly, used spell power manipulation and energy enhancement to strengthen his body to the limit, swung Loki back and forth, and kept smashing him to the ground until he stopped after dozens of times. After everything was over, looking at Loki with a dull face and doubting his life, Sumu said something that he didn't understand now. No wonder Hulk likes to smash things, the feel is really good. Because Sumu suddenly took action just now, Coulson had already dodged far away. Seeing that everything was calm, he immediately came over. Seeing the strange man with horns suddenly appearing, he asked Sumu in confusion. Mr. Sumu, who is he? Sumu was still savoring the feel just now. After experimenting on Loki, he immediately liked this feeling. Hearing Coulson's words, he replied casually. Loki, son of Odin, second prince of Asgard, and also a naughty child of thousands of years old. Loki, isn't that a myth? Coulson said in disbelief. For the ancients in the past, they were indeed gods who mastered powerful technology and magic, but their essence was nothing more than aliens. Looking at Loki, who was defeated by the white-haired demon, Coulson nodded deeply. How could there be such a weak god? Seeing the agents bring Loki to the interrogation room, Sumu ignored it. He knew that Loki would definitely escape, and these agents could not imprison the god of trickery at all. But this is what Sumu thought. If Loki did not escape, the destroyer armor would not come to the earth, and the subsequent mind gem gift pack would no longer exist. Focusing on Thor's hammer, Sumu reached out and grasped the hammer handle, trying to lift it, but it was obvious that the white-haired demon was not qualified to lift Thor's hammer. And at this time, his strength was far less than Odin's, and he could not use brute force to break the magic left by Odin on it. At this time, in the interrogation room, Thor was shocked to see his brother being imprisoned. He was sure that his cunning brother would never be caught by those agents, so someone else caught him. So he asked directly, Loki, who defeated you and captured you? After being asked by Thor, Loki finally recovered from the blow. He looked at Thor, who was also imprisoned beside him, and replied with gritted teeth. A white-haired man from the atrium, he insulted me, I will make him pay the price. As soon as the voice fell, Loki disappeared from the spot with the flash of magic. When Thor heard his words, he immediately thought of Suemu's white hair. The previous idea could not help but emerge again. Could he really be the white-haired devil? At this moment, a figure pushed open the door and walked in. The visitor had familiar white hair and familiar round-framed sunglasses. But at this time, the exquisite blue eyes that had been hidden under the sunglasses were revealed, which contained the unruly and empty eyes that he had never been able to match before. Thor heard the familiar yet strange white-haired demon in front of him say, "What a mess, Thor." After releasing Thor, Sumu stayed in a 5-star hotel, waiting for the arrival of the destroyer. And during this process, he kept absorbing the energy from the 2 arc reactors, constantly improving the panel fusion degree. A few days later, the sound of the system upgrading continued to ring in Suemu's ears. Energy point +1. Energy point +1. Energy point +1. After a long period of absorption, the colors of the 2 arc reactors became much dimmer than before. After a while, they would need to find Tony Stark to replace the new arc reactors. After absorbing for a few minutes again, Sumu heard several slightly different system prompts. Energy point +1. Template fusion degree, 60%. You have unlocked a new skill, Virtual Style. Virtual Style LV1 1/100th overlap the trending technique, Kang, and the reversal technique, He, to form an imaginary mass and release an energy wave that can cut through space. A large amount of information poured into Suemu's mind. This time the information was more dense than when he had acquired skills in the past, and the knowledge of the use of mana contained in it was more complicated. By the time he had digested all the knowledge, Su Mu had completely mastered the use of the virtual style, Z, and could release it with 100% success. At this moment, a white light that penetrated the sky and earth suddenly lit up in the distance. Su Mu looked at that direction and grinned. The timing was just right. This light should be the 4 warriors of Asgard using the Rainbow Bridge to find Thor, and the destroyer should be coming soon. I wonder if the destroyer armor made of Uru metal can withstand the virtual style, Z. Jumping out of the window, pacing in the air, Su Mu flew towards the direction where the white light column appeared at a high speed. The border town in the distance was in chaos, and the terrifying mechanical monsters several meters high were constantly destroying everywhere. The agents and some civilians who came to stop them were already dead. At this time, Thor was evacuating the surrounding civilians with Jane Foster and Dr. Eric, while the 4 warriors of Asgard rushed towards the destroyer armor that had descended. They knew that they were no match for the destroyer armor that Odin had spent a lot of effort to carefully build, but they were also quite confident in their own strength and believed that they could buy enough time to evacuate the crowd. So, just like Loki went to Su Mu a few days ago, Fandral, who had a big brown beard, bravely rushed towards the destroyer armor with the help of his companions. But when he just approached and had no time to attack, he was hit in the face by a punch from the destroyer armor, was smashed out and finally fell on a car, unable to get up again. When the destroyer armor was about to release a laser from its head to kill Fandral, Sif, the only female of the 4 warriors of Asgard, jumped off the roof and pierced the neck of the destroyer armor with a spear in her hand. Just when they breathed a sigh of relief and thought everything was over, they found that the destroyer armor had lit up again. It was unscathed and released energy rays again to force them back. In just a moment, the 4 warriors of Asgard were defeated by the destroyer armor. Only then did they realize the gap between themselves and the destroyer armor. When Thor saw the 4 injured warriors of Asgard and looked at the destroyer armor that was still being destroyed, he suddenly realized his responsibility, so he stood up and walked towards the destroyer armor in the distance. He wanted to use his life to save the lives of the weak, which is what a king should do. Just as Thor was preparing to welcome his own death, clear footsteps suddenly came from a distance, and the uninhabited border town at this time was extremely conspicuous. Everyone looked in the direction of the footsteps, and saw a young man with white hair and sunglasses, walking over unhurriedly with his hands in his pockets. He seemed not to notice the tragic situation in front of him, and the terrifying destroyer armor standing in the firelight, chewing gum bought from nowhere, while walking slowly like shopping. First, he passed by Jane Foster and others and said to them, "Hello, Jane, Professor Eric, we meet again." When Jane Foster saw Su Mu, a light of hope flashed in her eyes, and she immediately said to Su Mu, "Su Mu, help Thor, he is dying now." But before Su Mu could answer, the goddess of land and harvest Sif shook her head and said, "People of the atrium, give up, let Thor die gloriously, you can't stop the destroyer armor." Su Mu completely ignored Sif, nodded to Jane, and said in his usual unremarkable tone, "Then you have to agree to one condition of mine in the future, and you must first ask me to help you treat you after you're sick." Although Su Mu came for the destroyer armor, it is also very good to let Jane Foster owe him a favor at this time. When she is possessed by the reality gem in the future, I believe that the reversal technique will be upgraded to a sufficient level by then, and it is very likely that the reality gem in her body can be taken out. Isn't this another express delivery? Although she didn't know what Su Mu meant, in order to save Thor, Jane Foster immediately nodded in agreement. "Okay, I promise you, I will find you as soon as I get sick." Su Mu smiled with satisfaction, and then walked towards the destroyer armor. Suddenly, a figure stopped him. It was Sif, the only female among the 4 warriors of Asgard. She said to Su Mu with a serious face, "Go back, you can't be the opponent of the destroyer armor, don't destroy the glory that belongs to Thor." Hearing her words, Su Mu couldn't help but sneered. Glory is being slaughtered. Faced with Su Mu's ridicule, Sif immediately gave a warning. For Asgard warriors, dying on the battlefield and being remembered by future generations is the highest honor. Please leave immediately. Facing earthlings other than Thor, the 4 warriors of Asgard would not be so good-tempered. They looked down on the backward atrium. At this time, they did not immediately attack Sumu because he knew Thor. Looking at Sif, the legendary goddess of land and harvest, who was still blocking him, Sumu had no patience anymore. He smiled brightly at Sif. Just when Sif thought he would return, Sumu swung his right hand hard, and Sif was blown away by the powerful repulsive force. Her body smashed through houses, and finally embedded in the ground without any movement. The remaining 3 warriors of the Asgard Palace who were watching the show on the side, and Jane Foster and others, suddenly stagnated their breath and looked at what had just happened in shock. The 3 warriors of the Asgard Palace looked at Sumu in disbelief. When did the people of the Midgard become so powerful? They actually defeated Sif in an instant. When they reacted, instead of being afraid, they rushed towards Sumu. The people of the Midgard dared to attack the goddess of land and harvest, which was a heinous crime. Then, in the eyes of Jane Foster and others, the remaining 3 Asgard warriors were also blown away in an instant, and fainted on the ground after smashing houses. Even though she knew that Sumu was really the white-haired devil, Jane Foster was still incredible. Is the white-haired devil really so powerful? Even more terrifying than the gods in legends? As for Dr. Eric and Darcy, who still don't know Suemu's identity, they have subconsciously held their breath and stared at Sumu in a daze. So he is really a white-haired demon, not a cosplay. So is the white-haired demon really that powerful? After dealing with the 4 fools in Asgard, Sumu took a step forward and appeared in front of Thor as if teleporting, confronting the destroyer armor. When Thor saw Sumu coming, he first showed joy on his face, but immediately dimmed again and said to him, "Sumu, don't be impulsive. This is the destroyer armor made by my father to fight against the Celestials. It is made entirely of Uru alloy and is extremely powerful. You can't be its opponent. You should leave quickly. Loki's target is me. At least if he kills me, he will leave." Before Thor continued to advise, the body of the destroyer armor showed a scorching light, and an energy ray that was much more powerful than before suddenly shot towards Sumu. Loki, who was controlling the destroyer armor in Asgard, saw the white-haired man in front of him through the vision of the destroyer armor, and his face was overjoyed. Isn't this fool who insulted him a few days ago? This is the perfect opportunity for revenge. Even if that fool is really strong, he is definitely no match for the destroyer armor. Loki immediately ordered the destroyer armor to attack with all his strength. For some reason, Loki only used a small part of the power of the destroyer armor when attacking Thor and others before. Now facing the white-haired demon who once humiliated him, he immediately ordered the destroyer armor to exert its full strength. The hot energy beam flew towards Sumu at a high speed, and Thor on the side couldn't bear to see what happened next. Even if Sumu is very powerful, he can never be the opponent of the destroyer armor. He will be killed by the energy beam and turned into nothingness, and even his body will not be left behind. But the next moment, Thor's face turned into absolute astonishment. Loki, who was controlling the destroyer armor in the Asgard, changed his face greatly. In the field of vision observed through the destroyer armor, a fist forced to meet the laser beam and hit the chest of the destroyer armor directly. The next moment, the terrifying black and red lightning suddenly broke out between the two. Chapter 31. Black lightning exploded between Sumu and the destroyer armor. The aftermath of the collision between the two destroyed the surrounding area of dozens of meters, and then a huge steel figure was knocked out from the smoke and dust. After punching the destroyer armor away, Sumu was not intact. The energy rays released by the destroyer armor are more powerful than the energy rays of the Cyclops, and even the level 3 unlimited technique cannot completely resist it. Suemu's chest showed a large area of laser burn marks, which recovered quickly under the effect of the reversal technique. He looked forward excitedly, and the destroyer armor slowly rose from hundreds of meters away, without any damage to the whole body. Sumu fell into a disadvantage at the first contact, which was a situation he had never encountered since he crossed over. However, he was not discouraged, but became more and more excited. In the world of Jujutsu Kaisen, in addition to increasing the power of the attack to the original 2.5 power, the Black Flash will also put the user into the zone state. In this state, the user can increase his strength, speed, spell power, reaction, etc. to 120% of the normal level, showing amazing abilities. After using Black Flash, Sumu immediately entered this state. At this time, he felt unprecedented comfort, unprecedented swiftness of energy and flesh. The destroyer armor in the distance once again released a laser from its head and rushed straight towards Su Mu. After using the technique to turn, Kang, to move quickly and avoid the attack, Su Mu came to the front of the destroyer armor again. This time there was no interference from the laser, and he hit the destroyer armor again in an uninjured state. The energy fine control of the LV3 Six Eyes and the energy mastery ability of LV3 energy absorption greatly increased the success rate of Su Mu's release of Black Flash. The black and red thunder exploded again, and the destroyer armor was knocked away again, but this time he was not far away, and was attracted by the terrifying azure black hole. The strong pressure from the technique to turn, Kang, pulled the destroyer armor into the azure black hole, but unlike before, the azure black hole could not cause damage to the destroyer armor. After being suddenly attacked by gravity, the destroyer armor immediately adapted to the huge attraction and regained stability. However, Su Mu did not feel sorry. He was not surprised that the destroyer armor could ignore the attack of the Kang spell. If Odin could not be immune to the attack of the Kang spell, how could he wear the destroyer armor to fight against the Celestials? The smile on his face became more and more joyful, and the energy in his body was extremely active. His whole body was surrounded by the energy conversion mana, and the azure mana on the surface of his body seemed to be boiling. Extending his index finger, pointing to the destroyer armor in front of him that was resisting the attraction of the Kang spell, Su Mu's mouth cracked into a happy smile from the heart. Spell reversal. Quote. The spell power quickly flowed to the tip of the index finger, and a black and red singularity the size of a ping-pong ball formed quickly. As soon as Su Mu finished speaking, the black and red singularity cut through the air, piercing the air to form a terrifying sonic boom, disappearing in front of Su Mu's index finger, and instantly hitting the head of the destroyer armor. Boom! A terrifying explosion occurred, and the destroyer heavy armor was knocked away again. The powerful repulsive force from the reversal of the technique, was far more powerful than the attack of the Black Flash. While knocking the destroyer armor away, it continued to destroy the ground along the way, and finally knocked the destroyer armor away for thousands of meters, leaving a huge gully before it stopped. The aftermath of the explosion spread to the town in the distance, and the entire ground continued to shake, as if a high-intensity earthquake had occurred. At this time, Jane Foster and the 4 warriors of Asgard came to Thor's side, and watched the battle in the distance with Thor in shock. Even Thor, who has not lost his power, can't do this. Sif muttered to herself. The scene in front of her broke her previous cognition. It turned out that the people of the Midgard were so powerful. After releasing the reversal of the spell, Su Mu did not relax, because through the observation of the Six Eyes, the destroyer armor in the dust was still intact, but the armor on the chest was slightly damaged and recovered at a speed visible to the naked eye. This made Su Mu slightly complain. Why didn't he show such amazing fighting power when fighting Thor in the movie? Sure enough, Loki loves Thor deeply, and the usual quarrels are just a manifestation of Tsunere. While Su Mu was complaining, the destroyer armor in the distance rushed over again. Seeing this scene, Su Mu was even more excited. This was a brand new experience that he didn't get from fighting with Hulk. The two fought again, black lightning burst out from time to time, and the terrifying energy beams left dense scratches on the ground. During the battle, Su Mu's experience in each skill was increasing rapidly, and the system's prompts continued. Energy point +1. Six Eyes experience +1. Energy absorption experience +1. Unlimited spell experience +1. Spell forward, Kang, experience +1. Spell reverse, experience +1. After being hit by the energy ray again, Su Mu's arm was immediately pierced, and a large amount of blood was evaporated by the hot ray. But the next moment, the arm was visibly repaired, and the terrifying energy beam was suddenly blocked by the flesh, and it could no longer cause any damage to him. Finally, in the high-intensity battle, the energy absorption that was about to be upgraded was improved again. Energy absorption experience +1. Congratulations, your skill energy absorption has been upgraded. Energy absorption LV4 1/5000th can absorb almost all types of energy, with extremely high absorption speed and energy storage limit. After the energy absorption was upgraded, Su Mu's body immediately transformed. His bones and muscle fibers were transformed into a state more suitable for storing energy, and the limit of his body's energy storage was increased several times, and even his spirit was greatly strengthened, and his energy control was faster and more accurate. The energy beam that was almost unstoppable was like a spring breeze in front of him at this time, and the speed of energy absorption was far beyond the output speed of the destroyer armor. However, the destroyer armor, which was remotely controlled by Loki, could only exert such strength. Facing Su-Mu with LV4 energy absorption, he could no longer hurt him. Although other skills were also strengthened to varying degrees after the energy absorption was upgraded, Su-Mu was not going to use those skills. He couldn't wait to fight the destroyer armor. Ignoring the hot energy beam, he tore off the torn shirt on his upper body, revealing his beautiful muscles. Energy absorption LV4 full power strengthens the body, combined with the powerful physical skills given by the mana manipulation and the panel, as well as the refined control of energy and body by the six eyes, Su-Mu punched in the splashing energy beams. Boom! The more terrifying fist force was amplified to the original 2/5 power by the terrifying red and black lightning, and the destroyer armor was immediately knocked to the ground. When it came into contact with the ground, the residual power spread to the ground, huge cracks continued to appear, the ground quickly sank, and finally formed a huge circular pit with a diameter of hundreds of meters. Crossing Marvel, Bai Yi only had a numerical panel in the chat group of the heavens. I thought the chat group of the heavens was my golden finger, but I was banned by the omniscient and omnipotent immortal at the beginning. On the contrary, the numerical panel without hope is even more heavyweight. Talent 1 endless. There is no upper limit, no bottleneck, no weakness, and you can become stronger with hard work. Talent 2 rest of the strong. For every 1 point of attribute improvement, an additional 0.1 attribute points to be used or added. As long as you exercise, you can increase your physique infinitely like Saitama, but isn't the power of each attribute increase a bit wrong? 1 point of strength can't catch a chicken, but 5 points can move at supersonic speed and chase the Hulk all over the street. 20 points can drip blood to regenerate and crush the planet. 50 points can directly blow up the universe with one punch. When the physical fitness shown by each attribute increases not linear, but increases by percentage, exponential or even factorial, Bai Yi knows that he is going to make it. Bai Yi. This panel is probably designed by the physical education teacher. Good, good, good. Deep Blue, give me a lot of points. After the energy beam, the main means of attack, lost its effect, the destroyer armor was no longer Su-Mu's opponent. Every time Su-Mu attacked, he would absorb the energy from the destroyer's attack and strengthen himself. During the battle, his physical strength was completely consumed and he was always in peak condition. After the energy absorption reached level 4, it was undoubtedly a qualitative improvement. At this time, Su-Mu could absorb almost all energy, and even absorb all absorbable energy that was not in direct contact with him within a certain range. Now, except for bioenergy, chemical energy and very few other energies, he can easily absorb and manipulate them. For example, now, looking at the energy beam coming towards him, Su-Mu clenched his right hand slightly. When the energy beam approached him, it twisted and quickly formed a long spear with flashing light, and then he pierced it into the body of the destroyer and exploded violently. However, this attack is only the most superficial use of energy, and it cannot be compared with the use of skills. The same energy can exert more powerful power by using skills. Another black flash hit the destroyer and sent him flying. The destroyer could no longer easily resist Su-Mu's attack. The armor on his face was damaged, but it was recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. After a few minutes, Su-Mu finally adapted to the energy absorption of level 4. His body instantly disappeared from the spot and came to the destroyer armor, with his palm gently covering his chest. The next moment, the terrifying black and red singularity was released at close range, and the powerful repulsive force broke out in the chest of the destroyer armor. This attack finally penetrated its chest armor, causing great damage to it. Looking at the destroyer armor that was still recovering, Su-Mu couldn't help but sigh at the power of this armor made by Odin. The destroyer armor controlled by Loki was completely unable to exert all its power. I really don't know what kind of style the destroyer armor worn by Odin would be. But at this time, Su-Mu was tired of playing, and the destroyer armor in front of him could no longer pose the slightest threat to him. Looking at the destroyer armor in front of him, Su-mu took off his sunglasses and threw them aside. He stretched out the fingers of his left hand, held his right hand and left hand together, and looked at the destroyer armor in front of him, with the excitement in his eyes reaching the extreme. Spell forward, Kang. A half-human-sized azure black hole first formed on the left side behind him. Spell reverse, He. Another half-human-sized black-red singularity formed on the right side behind him, but it was slightly unstable because of the forced activation. Black lightning kept escaping and destroyed everything around. But these black lightnings were absorbed by energy when they approached Su-mu, and could not hurt him at all. Finally, Su-mu made a finger-snapping motion forward and said the name of this powerful ability that required the fusion of two powerful spells to be used. Virtual Style. Z. The azure black hole and the black-red singularity overlapped. Under the absolute control of energy absorption level 4 and the guidance of the experience of using the virtual style, Z, in his mind, the dark purple false mass sphere was completely formed, and then accompanied by purple lightning, it crashed into the destroyer armor. The dazzling purple light obscured everything around, making it all eclipsed. The whole world could only see a huge purple sphere moving forward at a high speed, destroying everything around it. In an instant, the terrifying illusion sphere passed through the destroyer armor and continued to move forward, destroying the Gobi along the way, passing through a mountain, until it disappeared at the end of the sight. After everything calmed down, Thor and others were stunned and saw a huge gully with a diameter of tens of meters starting from the white-haired demon and spreading to the end of the sight. Even the towering mountains in the distance could not stop it at all and were completely penetrated. And the indestructible destroyer armor, after facing this attack that was enough to penetrate the space head-on, disappeared completely, and not even a piece of Uru metal was left. In the Asgard god realm, after seeing the last picture sent back by the destroyer armor, Loki's body completely softened. What kind of monster is this? In a luxurious room, under a layer of transparent glass, Odin, who was in a deep sleep, suddenly opened his single eye, with deep horror in his eyes. Is it another ancient one? In a mysterious hall somewhere, a kind-looking bald woman put down the tea in her hand, turned her head to look in a certain direction and whispered. Has he grown to this extent? It is worthy of being a mysterious existence in the multiverse that only exists by itself and has no isotopes. In a hidden military base, the scene in the Gobi Desert was photographed by a surveillance satellite and projected on a huge screen hanging on the wall. Colonel Stryker pointed to the huge gully that seemed to divide the entire Gobi Desert in two and shouted angrily. The white-haired demon has grown to this point. If we don't launch the annihilation plan, then when his strength increases again, there will be no chance to kill him, and the entire United States will be ruled by him in the future. Hearing Stryker's words, a general immediately expressed his position. I agree. Then other senior military generals nodded one after another. Agree. Agree. After a while, everyone agreed to carry out the white-haired demon annihilation plan. Seeing this, Colonel Stryker finally smiled on his face. He smiled and said to many generals, Generals, the white-haired demon suppression device and the sentinels with space-slashing capability are fully ready and can attack at any time. A few minutes later, the supersonic helicopter that had been prepared took off from the military base closest to Su-mu and flew towards him at a high speed. At the end of the huge gully, Su-mu smiled brightly and looked at the traces left by the virtual style, C. The LV-1 virtual style, C, should not have such great power at all. He used the LV-4 energy absorption at this time to forcibly release the more powerful virtual style, C, which exerted such great power. But this level of attack is also a huge burden for him at this time, so that even he is panting violently, and the energy in his body is almost exhausted. However, under the effect of LV-4 energy absorption, whether it is the light energy of the sun, or the surrounding temperature, and the energy in the arc reactor are all being absorbed by him quickly, so the energy in his body is recovering at a very fast speed. After a while, the energy in his body was close to saturation. At the same time, the two arc reactors floating beside Su-mu completely dimmed, and the energy in them had been completely absorbed by him. Looking at the two completely exhausted arc reactors, Su-mu thought. It seems that I have to ask Stark for a new arc reactor, and I should also prepare to obtain the space gem. The LV-4 energy absorption should be enough to bear the space gem. After a while, after the energy in his body was fully restored, Sumyu checked the gains of this battle. First of all, 2 of his skills were upgraded again. Reversal spell experience +1. Congratulations, your skill reversal technique has been upgraded. Reversal spell LV2 107 300 turn the negative energy of the spell itself into positive energy, which has a strong healing effect. Spell reversal. He, experience +1. Congratulations, your skill spell reversal, he, has been upgraded. Spell reversal. He, LV3 19 1000 repulsive force is generated with he as the center. The minimum power is twice that of Kang, and the maximum output is positive infinity, similar to a small supernova. After the high-intensity battle just now, both the reversal technique and the technique reversal, H, have been upgraded by 1 level. Among them, because the technique has no lower limit and the previous enemies can hardly cause damage to Suemyu's body, the reversal technique has not been upgraded for a long time. In this battle with the destroyer armor, he needed to use the reversal technique to continuously treat the injuries caused by the energy beam, so the reversal technique that he had already accumulated a certain amount of experience was finally upgraded, and he was a big step away from level 3. The healing effect of the LV2 reversal technique on the body has been greatly enhanced, and the recovery speed of injuries has been greatly improved. Now the healing speed of the reversal technique, coupled with the recovery speed of energy absorption, has reached the level of Wolverine. However, the reversal technique at this time still cannot be used on other people. It should be possible when it reaches level 3. Thinking of this, Sumyu decided to practice the reversal spell more. After all, when Jane Foster came to deliver the food, she would still need to reverse the spell to take out the reality gem. And Sumyu is also looking forward to the effects of high-level reversal spells. The highest achievement of reversal spells in the spell battle is to become a master and be able to use reversal spells to heal others. So what kind of abilities will you have when the level of the reversal technique exceeds that of Ieri Glass and reaches a higher realm? Immortality, return from the dead, restore matter to its original state. Or is it another more magical effect? As for the reversal of the spell, H, the power was increased again. Turning his palm upward, the spell power surged, and a black and red singularity the size of a basketball appeared above Suemyu's palm, floating steadily. Throwing out the black-red singularity, accompanied by violent winds and strong vibrations on the ground, there was once again a gully more than 10 meters wide in the center of the huge gully tens of meters wide in front. The power of the spell reversal, he, is once again increased several times. Looking at the ravine left by the reversal of he, in front of him, Sumyu smiled with satisfaction. In addition to the upgrade of the 2 skills, there are other gains. The laser emitted by the destroyer armor has extremely high energy. After absorbing this energy, Sumyu gained a large number of energy points. At this time, all energy points are invested into the character template, and the fusion degree of the character template has been increased from 60% to 67%. If it weren't for the fact that the destroyer armor couldn't be carried around and was difficult to control, and there was a risk of being troubled by Odin, Sumyu would have wanted to use the destroyer armor to continuously absorb energy. However, even if the energy absorption reaches level 4, the arc reactor has not been eliminated. Sumyu calculated the current energy absorption speed and found that it would take about 5 arc reactors to supply energy together to meet his daily needs. Sure enough, getting infinite gems should be put on the agenda as soon as possible. Just when Sumyu was about to return, a harsh roar suddenly came from the distance. After hearing this strange sound, Sumyu felt that his body suddenly stopped, but he recovered instantly under the control of Luyan. His face, which had just regained its composure, became happy again, and the fruits he had planted before finally sprouted. A giant missile fell from the sky, and Sumyu stood still without moving. It was just a nuclear bomb, nothing more. Good Samaritans are sending energy again. The next moment, a dazzling light burst out suddenly, like the sun falling, and endless light and heat enveloped everything around it. In a small town in the distance, Thor and everyone suddenly saw a mushroom cloud rising from the distance, and a huge shock wave was about to spread to the small town. At this critical moment, Thor finally regained his power, summoned Thor's hammer, and brought several Jane Foster mortals further away, escaping the attack. The 4 warriors of Asgard followed closely behind, and after reaching the safe area, all of them looked at the scene in the distance. The explosion from humanity's most powerful weapon surprised even Thor. Why was Su-mu suddenly attacked by such a powerful weapon? Jane Foster explains for him. Su-mu's external identity is the White Devil. He is wanted by the authorities. Some time ago, I heard that the authorities have formulated a plan against him. I think this nuclear bomb must be the official handiwork. Being hit head-on by a nuclear bomb, even Su-mu wouldn't be able to survive. Saul stood up and said, I want to save him. Even if Su-mu dies, I will get his body back. But just as Thor took a step, he suddenly stopped, looked at the shrinking hot flames in front of him and said slowly, "Oh, it seems I don't need to take action anymore." In the distant military base, many generals can clearly see the conditions in the Gobi through surveillance satellites. After seeing the White Devil being directly hit by a nuclear bomb, everyone immediately cheered. Located in the center of the nuclear bomb explosion, even the White Devil cannot survive. The world's greatest threat has finally been erased, and the White Devil will become history. Contact various media outlets. We need to report the news that the White Devil is dead. Let the world know that the White Devil has been killed by the military. When others were cheering for the successful killing of the White Devil, only Colonel Stryker was still staring at the mushroom cloud in the picture. Having been dealing with mutants for a long time, and even his own son is a mutant, he has a very good understanding of mutants and knows that mutants may not necessarily have any mutant abilities, especially a mutant as powerful as the White Devil. He is not surprised at all even if he walks out of the center of the nuclear bomb explosion intact. Suddenly, the mushroom cloud in the picture changed. The flames and impact that were originally expanding outwards at a rapid speed suddenly shrank visibly. A large amount of light and heat seemed to be absorbed by the black hole and could not escape at all. Other generals also saw this picture, and the smiles on their faces suddenly stopped, looking at the scene in front of them in disbelief. What happened? The energy generated by the nuclear bomb explosion is being quickly absorbed by something in the center area. Isn't his mutant ability suppressed by the mutant suppression device? Why can he still use it? Oh, God, is he really a human? In a moment, all the energy of the nuclear bomb explosion was completely absorbed. There was nothing else in the explosion area except a large area of smoke and dust. Even the melted ground cooled down again. Then a vague figure slowly walked out of the center area of the explosion, came to the area without smoke and dust that the monitoring satellite could see, raised his head and raised a middle finger to the sky. Seeing this scene, all the generals were silent. The thing they least wanted to see happened. The white-haired devil actually grew up enough to withstand a nuclear bomb in a short period of time. In this case, what other means on Earth can be used to harm him? One of the generals suddenly thought of something and asked Colonel Stryker. Colonel Stryker, why doesn't the mutant suppression device work on the white-haired demon? Other generals also discovered the problem. That's right, if the mutant suppression device is really effective, then even the white-haired demon will be just an ordinary person after losing his mutant ability, and there is no way he can survive a nuclear explosion. At this time, the white-haired demon's mutant ability can still be used, so it must be that the mutant suppression device cannot have the desired effect. All the generals cast questioning glances at Colonel Stryker. Being questioned by many generals, Colonel Stryker was silent for a moment before explaining. The medium used by the mutant suppression device this time is sound waves. If the sound is deliberately isolated, the effectiveness of the suppression device will be greatly reduced. It is thought that the white-haired devil used this method to become immune to the effect of the suppression device. But don't worry, generals, we have a backup method, which is a white-haired devil suppression device that is made using the white-haired devil's detailed information and is only aimed at the white-haired devil. The effect of this suppression device is dozens of times more powerful than that of ordinary mutant suppression devices. And the medium of action of the new device is electromagnetic waves, which is almost impossible to block. However, because the scope of this device is limited, it was not used immediately. But I have installed it on every sentry robot. These sentry robots not only carry devices to suppress the white-haired demon, but also replicate the space attack capabilities against the white-haired demon. They will definitely kill the white-haired demon. Quote. After hearing Colonel Stryker's follow-up arrangements, many generals looked at him with admiration. They finally relaxed and regained confidence in the plan to kill the white-haired demon. Walking out of the center of the nuclear explosion, Su-mu burped and absorbed all the energy of a nuclear bomb explosion. Even he was almost filled to the brim, and the energy in his body was about to overflow. If it were not possible to continuously convert energy into energy points and put them into character templates, Su-mu would not be able to carry all the energy of a large-yield nuclear bomb explosion. Even so, he had the urge to explode at this moment and couldn't help but release all the energy in his body. At this time, through the long-sightedness of his 6 eyes, Su-mu discovered dozens of strange-looking robots that were approaching, and the boiling power in his body suddenly had a place to display. When those robots first appeared, Su-mu recognized them as Sentinel robots designed to annihilate mutants. The Sentry robot can detect any form of mutant abilities, and instantly transform itself based on these abilities to obtain different types of mutant abilities to achieve targeted effects. However, at this point in time, the Sentry robots in front of them should be far from reaching the final stage, and they should not be able to transform the X gene as they wish and obtain different mutant abilities. Su-mu guessed that they should only be able to load 2 or 3 mutant abilities at the same time, which would definitely include the space attack ability against him. However, I used to be able to break through his space attack. I wonder if I can still break through after the unlimited spell is upgraded to LV3. Surveillance satellites in the sky transmitted images of the Gobi to the military base. Many generals and Colonel Stryker looked nervously at the images in front of them. If this encirclement and suppression failed again, it would mean that they would no longer be able to restrain the white-haired devil. There's a way. Suddenly, they noticed that the white-haired demon in the picture took action. Instead of running away, he rushed straight towards dozens of machines. This made many generals and Colonel Stryker extremely excited. What they were most afraid of was that the white-haired demon would escape directly or attack the Sentry robot remotely. The range of action of the suppression device and space attack on the white-haired demon is very close, and there is nothing that can be done against distant enemies. If the white-haired demon really escapes directly, or hides and attacks from a distance, then the Sentry robot will be unable to do anything. After the white-haired demon completely entered the range of the suppression device, Colonel Stryker immediately ordered, "Activate the white-haired demon suppression device." At the same time, Su-mu heard the sound of electric current coming from the Sentry robot in front, and then felt that the energy in his body stagnated for a moment and then recovered instantly. He immediately realized that this was the effect of the mutant suppression device, but unfortunately, the mutant suppression device had no effect on him at all. Using a spell to reverse Kang, the huge gravitational force connected him to the distant space, and he stepped across 100 meters in one step to arrive in front of a Sentry robot. Putting his palm on the head of the Sentry robot, a black and red singularity erupted in his palm, and the terrifying repulsion continued to spread forward. The Sentry robot whose head was held down by Su-mu was destroyed first, and the black singularity continued to move forward until it was destroyed. Only then did a dozen Sentry robots stop. The command room in the distance fell into silence again. Stryker looked at the white-haired demon who ignored the suppression device in disbelief. The white-haired demon actually destroyed more than a dozen Sentry robots with just one strike, which made him doubt for the first time whether he could successfully hunt the white-haired demon. Why did the white-haired demon completely ignore the suppression device? You know, it was a special suppression device designed for him according to his ability data. The experimenters even confirmed that this suppression device can suppress the white-haired demon for at least several hours. But what about this time? Not even a second, it has no effect at all. A strong sense of uneasiness enveloped Colonel Stryker, and he could only constantly comfort himself. It doesn't matter, we still have space attacks. The white-haired demon can't resist space attacks and will definitely be killed by the Sentinel robot. Under his command, the Sentinel robot immediately released space attacks on the white-haired demon. The numerous space attacks were like a dense fishing net, trying to trap the white-haired demon in it, leaving him no chance to escape. Facing the many space blades flying towards him at high speed, Su-mu did not show any nervousness. This attack that could threaten him in the past can no longer have any effect on him. The flying speed of the space blade was extremely fast for him in the past, but after the 6 eyes were upgraded to level 3, it could be easily captured. If Su-mu wanted, he could easily avoid it. However, Su-mu did not do so. After dodging most of the space blades, he came to the front of the space blade and tried to use the unlimited spell to resist the attack of the space blade. The space blade that can easily break through the LV1 unlimited spell will immediately slow down and move forward at a snail's pace after entering the range of the LV3 unlimited spell. Facing the LV3 unlimited spell, the space blade can no longer break through easily. Looking at the space blade moving at a snail's pace in the unlimited spell, Sumyu came to the conclusion that it seems that the LV4 unlimited spell can be completely immune to space attacks. After the experiment, Sumyu stretched out his index finger and pointed it at the space blade in front. The azure black hole the size of a ping-pong ball and the black and red singularity of the same size merged in front of him, forming an illusion sphere emitting purple thunder, and then rushed forward. The purple illusion sphere instantly annihilated the space blade, and continued to fly forward, annihilating all the Sentinel robots on the path ahead until it disappeared at the end of the sight. In just a moment, most of the Sentinel robots were easily destroyed by the White Devil. The Sentinel robots could not cause any damage to the White Devil, even the space attack that Colonel Stryker had high hopes for had no effect, not to mention the other weapons loaded on it. In the projected picture, the White Devil's slaughter of the Sentinel robots continued. The White Devil was like a white ghost, traveling through the rain of bullets. Neither the space blade nor the other weapons carried by the Sentinel robots could touch him at all. The White Devil was too fast, and even the most advanced locking technology could not lock him, so most of the ammunition could not play a single role and could only be wasted. In addition, the generals present observed more details. The White Devil did not deliberately avoid the attack, nor did he use that weird space defense ability. He could now withstand the rain of bullets and be unscathed by himself. At most, he just used the purple mysterious sphere to destroy the space blade. His physique has grown to such a level, and he has mastered another new powerful mutant ability, which can penetrate space. If he can continue to use the purple sphere attack, he may be able to flatten a city in a few minutes. Don't forget that the White Devil has the mutant ability of energy absorption. If there is enough energy for him to absorb, he can definitely do it. No, the plan against the White Devil is cancelled. Even nuclear bombs can't hurt him. He has grown to the point where we can't confront him head-on. Agree. Many generals expressed their opinions. Suddenly one of the generals thought of something. Quick, stop contacting the media. If the media knows that our plan has failed, it will definitely be announced. At that time, the military's credibility will drop significantly. But a signalman said to him with a bitter face, "General, we have notified all the media." Looking at the signalman in front of him, the general's face turned pale immediately. For the first time, he wanted the soldiers' execution to be not too strong. The other generals also heard the signalman's words and realized what was about to happen. Those omnipresent media will definitely find out what happened in New Mexico and know that our plan against the White Devil has failed. Put pressure on the media and prohibit them from publishing any news about the White Devil. We can't block all the news, those journalists are crazy. As soon as one general proposed, another general immediately refuted. The conference room fell into silence again. The incident still developed to the worst situation. The generals present began to regret attacking the White Devil. Colonel Stryker on the side remained silent, but clenched his fists, and his nails even pierced the skin and oozed blood. He kept screaming in his heart, repeating a name. White Devil. Obviously, he would never give up his plan against the White Devil. And if he is willing to take all the risks, then these generals will definitely support him secretly. Now that the Sentinel robot has collected more information about the White Devil, he doesn't believe that the White Devil can still deal with it when the Sentinel robot becomes more and more perfect. When all the ammunition approached Sumyu, all the energy was absorbed, and they could not cause any injury to him, but instead allowed him to obtain a steady stream of energy points. Most of the attacks of the Sentinel robots had no effect on him, and only the space blades needed to be avoided. However, the Six Eyes could capture perfectly, and the virtual style, C, could destroy the space blades, so the Sentinel robots that were enough to make most mutants were despair just stake woodens with no resistance in Su-Emu's eyes. Finally, the black flash was swung, accompanied by the blooming of black and red thunder, and the last intact Sentinel robot was smashed to pieces by the terrifying force. So far, all the Sentinel robots have been destroyed. All the excess energy in the body was put into the system, and the fusion degree of the character template was increased again, and it had reached 72% at this time. The energy points for increasing the template fusion degree by 1% will be greatly increased for every 10%. After reaching 70%, the energy points required for each 1% increase in fusion degree are an astronomical number. If Su-mu only relied on absorbing nearby electricity as he did at the beginning, even if he continued to absorb it for several months, it would be difficult to increase the template fusion degree by 1%. At this time, almost all the energy of a nuclear bomb explosion was absorbed, and it only increased by 6%. In this way, even if all the energy in an arc reactor was absorbed, it would not be able to increase the system fusion degree much. However, Su-mu's goal was no longer the arc reactor. His goal was the 6 infinity stones, especially the power stone as the source of energy. He must get it. In addition, there are other energies that can be plundered. Whether it is absorbing the energy of a planet like the Celestial Group, or artifacts like the Eternal Fire, they contain great power for Su-mu to absorb. So he is not afraid of not having enough energy to unlock the template fusion degree. In addition, Su-mu has other considerations. Since his own ability can be upgraded, if he masters the portal, can he continue to improve it? You should know that if you just master the portal, you can be teleported to any place you have been to. Among them, Ned, a good friend of Spider-Man in the movie world, can even open a portal next to a designated target. So what realm will the portal reach if it is upgraded again? Travel through time and space. Travel through latitudes at will. Even open portals to other worlds. Su-mu is very much looking forward to this. Since the Marvel world exists, other worlds also have the possibility of existence. If he upgrades the portal to a certain level, he can open portals to other worlds and finally lead to the world of Jujutsu Kaisen. Then using a stronger move than Gojo Satoru to defeat Gojo Satoru is undoubtedly an extremely pleasant thing. Especially saying that classic line in front of Gojo Satoru. I am the only one in the world. It really makes my brain tremble just thinking about it. After everything was over, Thor and others in the distance began to approach. When they came to the edge of the battlefield, they saw the next scene. The smoke and dust covered the whole world, and countless huge depressions like those caused by falling meteorites were spread all over the land. A large amount of ammunition and missile debris were displayed on the sand. In the most central area, at the end of the scar on the earth caused by the purple horror sphere, in the center of the circular pit left by the nuclear explosion, the familiar yet unfamiliar white demon floated in the air 1 meter away from the bottom of the pit. He seemed to be recalling the battle just now, or thinking of something that made him happy. At this time, he was covering his forehead with his right hand, facing the sky, and slowly pulling a smile from the corner of his mouth, which then gradually expanded into a big laugh until it was unbridled. Thor and others immediately stopped and did not dare to move forward. Among them, Sif, one of the 4 warriors of Asgard, whispered, "What a dangerous guy." Everyone else nodded, fully agreeing with her words. Seeing Saul and others approaching, Su-mu fell back to the ground, and then heard Saul say, "I plan to leave. There are still things in God's domain that I need to deal with." Su-mu nodded, smiled and said to Saul, "Help me thank Loki and urge him to come to Earth as soon as possible to deliver the express." Of course Su-mu knew what Thor would face when he returned this time, the invasion of the Frost Giants, and that in order to prevent Loki from destroying the country of the Frost Giants, he would personally destroy the Rainbow Bridge, making it impossible to return to Earth immediately. However, this also means that Loki is about to fall into the abyss of the universe, and will meet Thanos next. He will be given the spiritual scepter by him, and he will be teleported back to Earth, where he plans to use the space cube to open the portal and prepare for the invasion of the Kuritas. And the spiritual scepter is also the takeaway that Su-mu has been waiting for. Although he didn't know what Su-mu meant by this sentence, Saul still said, "I will." Then he said goodbye to Jane Foster and promised to come back, and then left with the 4 warriors of Asgard in the colorful light beam lowered from the Bifrost Bridge. After the light of the Rainbow Bridge completely disappeared, Su-mu said to Jane Foster, "Don't forget to seek treatment from me." As soon as he finished speaking, he took a step forward and disappeared from the sight of Jane Foster and others. He will find Tony, obtain a new arc reactor, and then return a big gift to the military. The military gave them a mushroom, so it's not too much for him to give them a piece of peace, right? Leaving New Mexico, Su-mu flew towards Tony Stark's beach house at high speed. After the energy upgrade reaches LV4, he can already use teleportation to transfer himself continuously without fear of injury. In addition, after the reversal technique reaches level 2, in addition to greatly speeding up the treatment speed, the brain damage caused by long-term brain use can also be continuously treated, so that Su-mu can maintain the unlimited technique for a long time. Moreover, LV3's no lower limit spell can already initially identify dangers. Objects that are not a threat to him will not be affected by the no lower limit spell, while threatening objects will be excluded. It's late afternoon, and the seaside villas are brightly lit at night. The party hosted by Tony Stark, the richest man in the world, was gorgeous and extravagant. A large number of hot-figured ladies only wore sporadic fabrics to cover their vital parts. They constantly showed themselves at the party, hoping to attract the attention of the protagonist. The interweaving of lights, beauties, and drinks makes the entire seaside villa filled with a strong hormonal atmosphere. At this time, the seaside villa is undoubtedly a paradise for any man. Tony Stark was obviously drunk in the center of the dance. He had just peed in his steel armor and had an argument with Pepper Potts. Later, he used weapons on the steel armor and threw them into the sky at the invited ladies. Drinks shot as entertainment. Just then, a voice broke the lively atmosphere of the party. Colonel Rhodes came out wearing another steel suit and yelled at everyone in the team. "I only say this once, get out." The banquet immediately fell silent, the lively atmosphere disappeared immediately, and everyone looked at Rhodes. Just when Rhodes thought everyone was about to leave, he suddenly realized something was wrong. Did the people in front react a little too fiercely, as if they might die at any time? But he won't kill them. Suddenly, Rhodes realized that those people were not looking at him, but behind him. The unconscious trembling and fear in his body were also caused by someone behind him. Rhodes realized something immediately, but before he could turn around, a palm with slender fingers and clear bones pressed on his shoulder. This palm contained terrifying power. Even though he was wearing steel armor at this time, he was still overwhelmed by the huge force and could only kneel on one knee to resist the huge pressure. And the hard ground under his knees was also unable to withstand the huge pressure, and cracks slowly appeared. Until then, he finally heard a demonic whisper from behind. "Colonel Rhodes, how can the party stop? You don't want to make me angry, right?" Rhodes suddenly felt his body stiffen and turned his head one by one. Then he saw the handsome man with white hair and blue eyes put his hand on his shoulder and smiled at him, but the bright smile contained the ultimate malice. Colonel Rhodes immediately said from his heart, "I don't think the party should end either." The white-haired demon smiled with satisfaction, then walked forward, came to Tony Stark's side, and shouted to the many hot beauties in front of him. "Don't stop, keep playing music and keep dancing." The hot beauties, whose spirits had been eroded by alcohol, immediately put aside their fear of the white-haired devil and cheered loudly. The lights continued to flash and the screams grew louder. In addition to the energy attacks from the steel armor, there were also azure black holes and terrifying black-red singularities. Of course, the skills are all under Su-mu's control and will not cause any damage to the surroundings. Tonight is undoubtedly a wonderful night. When Su-mu woke up, it was already the next morning. He got up, dressed, stepped over a dozen naked bodies lying on the bed or on the floor, and walked out of the room to the lobby of the beach villa. Even though Su-mu had the reversal technique, he felt a little overwhelmed when dealing with a dozen hungry girls at once. When he walked into the living room, he found Tony was already waiting there, and some images were projected in front of him, which were the nuclear explosion in New Mexico and the white-haired man who walked out of the nuclear explosion. Hearing footsteps from the side, Tony turned his head and saw the white-haired man yawning, and his eyes were full of horror. Seeing this, Su-mu teased, "What's wrong? Don't look at me like that, my orientation is normal." However, compared to Su-mu, Tony didn't have the leisure time. He looked at Su-mu in disbelief and asked a question that shocked him. "Were you really hit by a nuclear bomb head-on and walked out of it intact?" Su-mu looked at the projection in front of Tony and grinned. "Of course, it's very simple." "Simple? How did you do it?" "Tony, don't be surprised. In addition to me, there are many people who can do it, such as the Supreme Sorcerer of Kamar Taj. Supreme Sorcerer, who is that? Just as Tony was about to continue asking, a spark suddenly flashed in front of the two of them, and a circular portal that kept sputtering sparks slowly formed. Finally, a bald woman with a kind face walked out of the portal. When the bald woman walked out of the portal, even though her appearance was different from that in the movie universe, Sumew still recognized her identity. Supreme Sorcerer. The moment he saw the Supreme Sorcerer, Suemew's muscles tightened, and he used all his strength to strengthen his whole body with his mantra and energy. He was highly focused, and his 6 eyes were running at the limit, reaching his peak state. Facing a father-level strongman, even the current Sumew dared not relax at all. Tony looked at the bald woman in front of him, and then carefully observed the portal behind her. He suddenly felt that since he openly admitted that he was Iron Man, the whole world had gradually become unfamiliar. First, there was the white-haired demon, then the Thor who descended on New Mexico, and the legendary Asgard. At this time, a bald woman in yellow opened the portal and broke into his home. Pretending to take the wine, Tony hid behind Sumew, then picked up the bottle and poured it into 2 cups, handed 1 cup to Sumew and kept the other for himself, and said to the bald woman in front of him, "Well, who are you? How did you achieve the light circle behind you? Mutant ability, some kind of technology, or other superpowers?" The Ancient One, who had set his sights on Sumew as soon as he appeared, finally moved his sight away from him and set his sights on Tony. Hearing Tony's question, the Ancient One smiled mysteriously, and said calmly and gently, "This is magic." Okay, magic. Tony immediately believed the Ancient One's words. Since he knew that even the mythical Asgard really existed, it was normal for magic to exist. So, this wizard, why are you here? The correct term should be mystic wizard. Ji Yuyi first pointed out the mistake in Tony's words, then turned his eyes back to Sumew, and then said, "I'm looking for this gentleman." Tony drank the precious red wine in the glass and spread his hands and said, "I knew it." Seeing the Supreme Mage mentioning himself, Sumew couldn't remain indifferent. He showed a bright and genuine kind smile and said to the Supreme Mage, "Respected Supreme Mage, what do you want to talk to me about?" Seeing Suemew's performance, Tony on the side was extremely incredible, especially seeing that the smile that always carried thick malice could be so bright, which made him feel a little uncomfortable. The next moment Tony immediately caught the name mentioned by Sumew, the Supreme Mage. Could it be that the bald woman in front of him was the Supreme Mage who could also withstand nuclear bombs? Faced with 2 monsters who could withstand nuclear bombs, Tony felt uneasy. It seems that in addition to the white-haired demon armor, the Supreme Mage armor should also be put on the agenda. The Supreme Mage standing opposite Sumew heard Suemew's words and smiled at him. "I want you to be the new Supreme Mage, and I can teach you everything I know, as long as you are willing to help me protect the Earth before the next Supreme Mage appears." Sumew was stunned. He didn't expect that the Supreme Mage actually wanted him to become the Supreme Mage. Did he want to retire early? This thought came to his mind, and Sumew refused immediately without thinking, "Sorry, I don't plan to become the Supreme Mage." He didn't plan to become the Supreme Mage and protect the Earth. With this time, he constantly absorbed energy and unlocked more character templates. He had already surpassed the Supreme Mage and became a powerful existence that he couldn't compare to. The Supreme Mage was not surprised. She already knew the result. She just wanted to try it. Her main purpose was not these. The Supreme Mage took out a strange ring with 2 holes and controlled it to float towards Sumew. "You seem to have the ability to increase your ability limit. If you can master the portal, you may be able to travel through latitudes at will in the future." Looking at the ring in his hand, Sumew was a little surprised. He didn't expect to get the ring so easily. He asked the Supreme Mage, "What price do you need to pay for it?" The Supreme Mage shook his head. "You don't have to pay any price, but I suggest that you can travel to the parallel universe as soon as possible in the future. After all, the world is so big, you should go and see it." Suemew's mouth twitched. Although his tone was euphemistic, he certainly heard the Supreme Mage's subtext. "I don't ask you too much, just spare this universe and do more harm to other parallel universes." But this just fits his idea. He has too many things he wants to witness, such as the extermination of the Zerg, the crazy attack event, the loss of the universe, the Infinity War, etc. The greatest charm of the Marvel world is the infinite possibilities in the infinite parallel universes. He can't be bound by a parallel universe. Seeing that Su Mu accepted the ring and completed the purpose of this trip, the Supreme Sorcerer wanted to leave, but was stopped by Su Mu. Supreme Sorcerer, what do you think of Tony as the Supreme Sorcerer? With his brain, he can easily do it. Tony Stark didn't expect Su Mu to suddenly mention him and actually wanted him to become the Supreme Sorcerer. Now even Tony was a little at a loss, pointing at himself and said, "Me." Su Mu pushed Tony in front of the Supreme Sorcerer, and then said to him, "Don't you think that the collision of technology and magic can bloom more brilliant sparks?" Tony thought seriously and nodded. It is almost difficult to deal with a terrifying existence like Su Mu with the power of technology alone, and it takes time to climb the technology tree, so it is difficult to get more powerful power immediately. So at this time, learning from magic and combining it with technology may be a new way out. At the same time, the Supreme Sorcerer looked at Tony Stark, the genius and playboy in the eyes of the world. But her eyes were empty, as if she was not looking at Tony in front of her, but at the future under the long river of time. After a while, the Supreme Sorcerer smiled. "This gentleman will be an excellent Supreme Sorcerer." Su Mu smiled, and he knew that the Supreme Sorcerer agreed. After Su Mu's proposal, Tony left with the Supreme Sorcerer and went to Kamar Taj to learn magic. Su Mu was very confident that Tony could learn magic. After all, he was the Supreme Sorcerer in a certain universe. And the Supreme Sorcerer did not reject this proposal, which also meant that Tony should be very talented. Carrying a backpack, Su Mu paced in the air and flew straight to Washington. There are 10 arc reactors in the bag, enough for Su Mu to use temporarily. When the energy of these arc reactors is exhausted, he must have obtained the Infinity Stones. With level 4 energy absorption, Su Mu's speed has exceeded Mach 10. It only takes more than 10 minutes to fly from Black Coast, San Diego, California to Washington. And his destination is the White House, the political center of the United States. In order to thank the military for the gift, he returned the gift. But when he approached the White House, he found that the White House had already fallen into chaos. In the square in front of the White House, 2 groups of people were confronting each other. They were holding banners to convey their ideas. Some of them shouted, "Incompetent officials, you are wasting taxpayers' money. The plan to kill the White Devil must be re-implemented. The White Devil is the greatest threat to mankind. Against the Mutant Liberation Treaty." Contrary to this group of people, another group of people retorted, "Free the mutants. Mutants are no different from humans, they are also part of the human race. No need to make boring sacrifices, we can't be the opponent of the White Devil. The White Devil is now able to withstand nuclear bombs and will be even stronger in the future. He is an angel who has descended to Earth and a living god. If we continue to target the White Devil, it will be the real path to destruction." To Su Mu's surprise, most of the people who supported the treaty for the liberation of mutants had white hair on their heads and wore the same white coat he was wearing when he was first reported. Several of the people who played him looked exactly like him, with almost identical hairstyles, heights, and body shapes, and even the pupils wore bright blue contact lenses. If Six Eyes hadn't been able to detect the slight difference, Su Mu would have thought that an unknown force had created a copy of him. Moreover, through the perception of the Six Eyes, many mutants who supported the treaty for the liberation of mutants were mixed in. According to the energy vision, Su Mu even found Mystique among several people who looked like him, and other people in the periphery. Member of the X-Men. What's going on? Isn't Mystique a member of the Brotherhood of Mutants? Why did you join the X-Men again at this time? Could it be that she was tricked by Professor X again? The more Su Mu thought about it, the more likely it seemed that Mystique did not hate humans like Magneto. She was just disappointed in humans and believed that humans' promises were not trustworthy, so she joined the Brotherhood of Mutants. It seems that at this time, the government was afraid of his revenge and wanted to promulgate a treaty to liberate mutants, so it rejoined the X-Men. But what are these imitators? Su Mu didn't think her image outside was very good, but she had so many supporters at this time. So he directly asked a lady in front who also cosplayed as a White Devil. "Why do you cosplay the White Devil and support the Treaty of the Liberation of Mutants?" The girl turned around and her eyes lit up. The gentleman in front of her was the cosplayer closest to the White Devil she had ever seen. Even his temperament was almost exactly the same. As for the gentleman in front of her being the White Devil, she had never considered this aspect at all. Because of Su Emu's handsome appearance, although his question was a bit strange, the lady still answered. Of course it's because the White Devil is handsome. The young lady's other companions also noticed what was going on here. Their faces lit up when they saw Su Emu, and they immediately surrounded him. They also heard Su Emu's question just now, and they answered his question while rubbing their fair skin against his body. The White Devil is handsome, he is very charming. That's right, that's right. Su Emu had black lines all over her head, which fit the idea of a nymphomaniac. He calmly used unlimited techniques to push aside the nymphomaniacs around him who wanted to take advantage of him, and continued to ask. Is there no other reason? At this time, a young man with acne was enviously watching Su Emu being surrounded by many hot girls. When he heard Su Emu's question, he interrupted and analyzed. Of course there are other reasons. Now that the White Devil can survive the explosion of a nuclear bomb, humans have no way to eliminate him. If nothing else happens, the future world will be ruled by white demons. And when the White Devil rules the world, his character will definitely clean up those previous opponents and those who once attacked him. We support the White Devil in advance so that we can survive the liquidation. Quote. Hearing the young man's words, Su Emu was speechless. Why didn't he know that he wanted to rule the world? He has no such leisure. But he didn't explain, he just nodded and smiled, and walked forward. Ignoring the requests of several girls behind him to add their contact information, he walked straight through the crowd and headed towards the entrance of the White House. As he moved forward, the girls behind him stopped talking for some time, and the noisy arguments around him gradually disappeared. It only took a few seconds for the surroundings to go from noisy to silent. The unlimited technique slowly opened, and the dense crowd around him was pushed away, unable to get close to him. Some of the people who were pushed away wanted to turn around and yell, but before they could start, they were knocked away by the terrifying repulsion and knocked down a group of innocent marchers. More and more people around him noticed this unusual white-haired man. His location immediately changed from a remote corner to the center of the line of sight, attracting countless eyes. The bodies of the girls who communicated with Su Emu at the beginning were trembling continuously. Looking at the scene in front of them, they didn't know whether they were excited or scared. Among them, the girl who was questioned by Su Emu had a dull look on her face. She could only mutter to herself because she was too excited. He's really the White Devil. He's really the White Devil. At the junction of the two groups, several leaders of the organization saw this scene and immediately stopped communicating. Whether they support the White Devil and want to get a glimmer of hope in the subsequent purge, or oppose the Treaty of Liberation of Mutants and want to kill the demon immediately and eliminate the threat, they dare not speak again. Just like Yi Gonghaolong, when the White Devil had not appeared in front of them, they communicated freely, whether they supported or opposed, they were fearless. But when the White Devil appeared in front of them, they no longer had any courage, for fear of attracting the White Devil's attention. There was even a dark color under the crotch of the leader of the opponents that continued to expand until an unknown liquid dripped onto the ground. But fortunately, the White Devil did not pay attention to any of them, but walked to the front of the White House, facing the fully armed soldiers who had assembled at an unknown time, and dozens of sentinel robots. He slowly floated up, stood in the void, and laughed sarcastically, looking down at everything in front of him. Looking down at the political center of this country, looking down at the supporters behind him, whether they supported or opposed. He was about to say something, but suddenly nodded his forehead, then smiled apologetically. Sorry, wait a minute, I forgot something. The next moment, he suddenly disappeared and appeared in front of the leader of the opposition. Then, under the gaze of all the other marchers, under the loud stop of the X-Men who kept rushing over, he stretched out his hand in front of the leader of the opposition, in front of the trembling body of the leader of the opposition. So, the terrifying repulsive force burst out with black lightning, destroying everything in front. First, the body of the leader of the opposition was shattered in vain and turned into powder, followed by everything behind him, all the voices of opposition, all the different words, slowly dissipated with the red mist. Just as Su Emu said to Professor X at the beginning, the existence of different voices is only because the strength is not strong enough. After solving everything, Su Emu used repulsion to splash the blood floating around, dyeing the surrounding large area red, as well as the faces of the supporters and the X-Men who came. Sumu ignored the screams of fear and the loud questions of the X-Men behind him, and did not care about the lingering blood behind him. Instead, he returned to his original position again, still floating in the air, and grinned towards the front against a background like hell. Sorry to have kept you waiting, My Excellency the President. Under the terrifying repulsion, not even a piece of flesh and blood was left on the mortal body. A large area of blood lingered in front of the White House like mist, emitting a pungent smell of blood that could not be dissipated for a long time. The original supporters screamed when they saw the scene in front of them, and some even fainted to the ground out of fear. Against this background, the White Devil stood in the air, ignoring the soldiers in front, and declared to the president inside the White House. The White Devil is here. Many soldiers were waiting in formation, looking seriously at the godlike White Devil standing in the void in front of them. Although they were fully armed, they had no sense of security at all and had never thought of defeating the White Devil. Whether it was the terrifying repulsion that wiped out everything with just one casual blow, or any of the previous glorious achievements, it showed that the White Devil was not an existence they could fight against. The bodies of some soldiers also trembled slightly. Even though they had been on the battlefield and had seen hell on earth, they had never seen the scene in front of them. The white demon in the vast blood mist stood in the air. The breeze mixed with the thick smell of blood swept towards them with the purest malice, trying to drown them all. If it continues, I believe that these well-trained soldiers will most likely escape. They are also human beings and are also afraid of death, especially when facing the invincible enemy in front of them in the next battle that is impossible to win. The president in the White House also noticed the arrival of the White Devil, and he immediately realized something. The White Devil is coming. He is definitely seeking revenge for the military's attack on him some time ago. What should I do? The president did not escape, because according to intelligence, the White Devil has a flying speed of more than Mach 10, extremely long-range attack capabilities, and a wide range of perception capabilities. When the White Devil appeared, it had already locked onto him. As long as he dared to escape, the only thing that would greet him was death. Suddenly, the president thought of something, and immediately said to the bewildered assistant, "Notify the X-Men and ask them to stop the White Devil, otherwise once I am killed by the White Devil, the Treaty of Liberation of Mutants will never be promulgated." Even if they didn't receive a warning from the president, there was absolutely no way the X-Men would let the White Devil do whatever he wanted. But when they wanted to stop it, it was already too late. Black thunder erupted, blood filled the surrounding area, and the surrounding area instantly became a hell on earth. Professor X looked at the scene in the distance, and his heart immediately sank. This time the White Devil killed hundreds of civilians. Even if it is handled properly afterwards, it may be difficult for the Mutant Liberation Treaty to be promulgated. Looking at the White Devil provoking the White House, the President, the entire U.S. government and officials, Professor. The White Devil must not be allowed to kill the President, otherwise the gap between mutants and humans will never be eliminated, and they will only be in constant confrontation. Hearing Professor X's words, many X-Men rushed towards the White Devil. Among them, Storm flew directly in the air and asked the White Devil, "Why are you doing this? Do you know that this will make the relationship between mutants and humans even more tense?" The White Devil ignored. Then Cyclops arrived, and he also asked the White Demon, "Why, you are also a mutant, but you want to obstruct the promulgation of the treaty to liberate mutants?" The White Devil ignored him. Mystique walked out of the crowd and changed into her original appearance. She shouted hatefully at the White Demon in the sky, "You have ruined our decades of hard work. You have ruined the future of countless mutants. You are unpardonable." But the White Devil still didn't answer, just looked ahead indifferently, ignoring her anger, not caring about the future of mutants, just standing high in the sky. Cyclops could no longer bear the White Devil's aloof attitude. He took off his glasses, and the hot beams from different latitudes used his eyes as a gateway to vent infinitely outward. At the same time, Storm also activated her ability. Strong winds blew around her, the sky immediately became gloomy, violent thunder fell from the sky, and attacked the White Demon. However, even in the face of these attacks, the White Devil still did not react at all and allowed these attacks to fall on him. Seeing this scene, Cyclops' face showed excitement. Unexpectedly, the White Devil was so confident that he completely ignored their attacks. Now the originally slim chance of winning would be greatly improved. Facing the almost impossible White Devil to defeat, they finally have a good chance of winning. He immediately increased the output of the laser beam, trying to seriously injure the White Demon at once, and Storm did the same. But completely opposite to them, when Professor X in the distance saw this scene, Fifen did not relax but became more solemn. Because he thought of the White Devil's ability to grow infinitely, and its mutant abilities that were almost exactly the same as the previous terrifying enemy. Could it be? The next moment, the laser beam and the violent lightning hit the White Devil. Then under the shocked eyes of some people, the White Devil who was hit did not suffer any damage. Whether it was a violent thunder or a scorching laser, after approaching the White Demon for a few meters, it dimmed visibly to the naked eye, and finally submerged into the White Demon's body. All this energy was absorbed by the White Devil. Professor X in the distance finally confirmed his guess. The mutant ability absorbed by the energy of the White Demon has also been transformed. At this time, it has evolved to a level comparable to the Black Emperor, or even more powerful than the Black Emperor. Su Mu ignored the attack behind him. After all, although the energy of the two power banks is small, it cannot be wasted. He took a step forward, and the violent repulsion spread rapidly from his body to the front, first to the lawn, then the fountain, the floor, the soil, and finally to the fully armed soldiers. The next moment, accompanied by a huge roar, the dust and grass fragments intertwined, accompanied by the vast blood color, dissipated in the wind stirred by the terrifying repulsion. No, seeing this scene, Cyclops was emotional. Because of his out-of-control emotions, his mutant ability was several times stronger, but the laser beam, which was several times thicker, could only replenish the energy of the White Demon, and still could not hurt him at all. The X-Men faced the White Demon, just like ordinary people face them, weak and powerless. This is the essential difference. At this moment, Su Mu suddenly felt a strong energy rising from behind him. That energy was both destructive and vital. It was clearly broken, but still majestic. He felt that the power ignored the energy absorption and directly decomposed his body. Although the decomposition speed was too slow and could not pose any threat to him, it still attracted the interest of the devil. He finally turned around slowly and looked at the Phoenix girl in the distance whose eyes were gradually turning red, and smiled brightly. Professor X looked at the scene in front of him with a serious face. Even the attacks of Cyclops and Storm had no effect on the White Devil. Instead, they continuously provided him with energy. Now only one of them could stop the White Devil. Entering the consciousness of Phoenix Girl through telepathy, Professor X said to Phoenix Girl, "Jean, release your power, don't be afraid of it, use your power to defeat the White Devil." Phoenix Girl's eyes gradually turned red, and her body slowly floated up. The Phoenix Force from the original universe gradually revived in her body, which could decompose everything. The flame representing life and emotion burned from her body. The surrounding matter was affected by the Phoenix Force and immediately dissipated quickly. The powerful force from the Phoenix Force could decompose any matter. Even the powerful White Devil was no exception, and his body was also decomposing. This time, the White Devil who ignored everything finally couldn't ignore it and looked at Phoenix Girl. Seeing this scene, the X-Men and others gained confidence. Just like Apocalypse in the past, the White Devil would also turn into ashes in front of Jean. Su Mu turned around and saw Jean Grey, whose Phoenix power was gradually awakening. It was obvious that the energy absorption of level 4 was not enough to resist the ability of the Phoenix power to decompose matter. His body was slowly dissipating, and as time passed, the speed of dissipation was still accelerating. However, Su Mu was not worried. He smiled brightly at Jean Grey, then pointed his index finger at Jean Grey. The terrifying black and red singularity formed in an instant and flew towards Jean Grey in an instant. The black and red singularity tore through everything along the way and rushed towards Jean Grey with an unstoppable momentum. Faced with such a powerful attack, Phoenix Girl could no longer care about Su Mu, but hit all her strength on the black and red singularity in front. The black and red singularity comparable to a small supernova began to dissipate rapidly, and disappeared before it approached her. Seeing this scene, the X-Men and others gained confidence, but the next moment, the smiles on their faces immediately stopped. At the moment when the black and red singularity just disappeared, the White Demon disappeared from the spot without knowing when, appeared in front of Chin, and then suddenly punched out. Boom! Black and red lightning exploded between the two, and the telekinesis from the Phoenix Force collided with the Black Flash, and the ground immediately shattered. The huge aftermath caused the ground to sink rapidly, and finally formed a huge deep pit. Such a terrifying power. Even Professor X in the distance was affected, but with a figure passing quickly, everyone was transported to a distance. Quicksilver rushed over with other X-Men, and placed Professor X, Storm and Cyclops in a safe place. Then he put down his goggles and looked at the two people fighting in the distance and exclaimed, "Holy shit." Su-Mu was not surprised that the Black Flash was stopped once. If he couldn't stop the Black Flash, then it wouldn't be the Phoenix Force. And the reason why he used the Black Flash was just to put himself in the zone state. After entering the zone state, whether it is energy, spell power or body coordination, it is maximized, reaching the original 120% state. Once again, the Black Flash hit the telekinetic shield of Phoenix Girl. The amplified Black Flash is no longer something that Phoenix Girl, who has not yet fully awakened, can resist. As if the harsh sound of glass breaking suddenly sounded, the telekinetic shield was cracked by the Black Flash, and then Su-Mu changed his fist into a palm, and the black singularity was quickly generated in his palm. The black-red singularity comparable to a small supernova instantly shattered the telekinetic shield and rushed towards Phoenix Girl. Facing such a close-range attack from the black-red singularity, Phoenix Girl could not completely decompose the black-red singularity at all, and was about to be hit by the black-red singularity. At this moment, Wolverine used the laser of Cyclops and the storm of Storm Girl as a boost to accelerate himself and quickly block Phoenix Girl. He wanted to help Phoenix Girl resist the damage caused by the black-red singularity. But even with the adamantium alloy, he couldn't resist the black and red singularity that had shrunk by half. He was instantly knocked out and hit Phoenix behind him. Then, with the sound of broken bones, he broke through layers of houses and disappeared into layers of ruins. "No!" Cyclops roared. Why did he fall into such a state in an instant when he was on the verge of victory just now? Even with Wolverine as a shield, Phoenix, a mortal body, would find it difficult to survive such a terrifying attack. He tried his best to use a huge and thick laser beam that was far more powerful than usual, but it was also useless. After approaching the White Demon, the laser beam was completely absorbed by it. Looking at the many X-Men in front of him, Su-Mu's face became more and more happy. Then he stretched out his palm and pointed forward, thinking of an anime move that he liked very much in his previous life. Shinra Tensei. The technique was reversed and he was overloaded again. Accompanied by the black and red lightning that was surging everywhere due to instability, the unprecedented terrifying repulsive force spread rapidly from Su-Mu to the distance. All matter was annihilated by the terrifying repulsive force. In the blink of an eye, there was only a ruin thousands of meters away. Even Su-Mu felt a little pressure from this attack. The energy in his body was consumed by half. 5 arc reactors flew out of his backpack and flew slowly around him. A large amount of energy was absorbed by him, and the energy in his body was quickly restored. Ignoring the X-Men who didn't know whether to live or die in the distance, Su-Mu slowly walked towards his goal. He casually dealt with dozens of first-generation Sentinel robots, put his hands in his pockets, and walked towards the interior of the White House without panic. During the process of moving forward, he felt different spying sights more than once, smiled brightly in the familiar spying direction from the surveillance satellite, and then continued to move forward. The White House was damaged by the battle, and even the poor president was crushed by the rocks. Seeing Su-Mu coming, the poor president immediately showed a look of horror and begged for mercy. "No, don't kill me, the plan to attack you is not something I can stop." Su-Mu did not answer, but came to the president who was crushed by the rocks, looked at him and said, "Tell me the location of other senior military officials." Hearing Su-Mu's words, the president immediately knew his purpose and explained immediately. "I don't know, after you walked out of the nuclear bomb explosion, they concealed their whereabouts, even I don't know their location." "Tisk, it's really disappointing." Su-Mu continued to ask, "Then you should know their appearance and other information besides their location." I know. The president, who wanted to get a glimmer of hope, immediately told Su-Mu the location of all the generals' information, and Su-Mu got the information of those generals in a moment. Seeing the smile on the White Devil's face, the president mustered up the courage and said carefully, "Can you let me go?" The White Devil did not reply to him, just gave him a smile, and then stepped out and disappeared in the almost ruined White House. Seeing the White Devil disappear, the president breathed a sigh of relief and said slowly, "Finally I survived." But before he finished speaking, a terrifying purple imaginary sphere fell from the sky with dazzling thunder. In an instant, the White House completely disappeared, leaving only a huge circular pit with no bottom. The falling purple illusion sphere penetrated the space and annihilated the entire White House. The political center of the United States, one of the national symbols, and the iconic building with hundreds of years of history disappeared in an instant, leaving no trace except for the bottomless pit. After the incident just happened, all the senior military officials got the news. They were in a hidden military base, watching the footage taken by the surveillance satellite. From the moment the White Devil appeared, to the terrifying blood color that lingered in the entire White House for a long time, to the fight between the White Devil and the X-Men, the terrifying aftermath of the battle, and the terrifying repulsion that destroyed thousands of meters of area. Until the end, the White Devil raised his middle finger to the sky with a sneer, and casually solved dozens of Sentinel robots, entered the White House, killed the president, and used the terrifying purple illusion sphere to destroy the White House with hundreds of years of history. They are undoubtedly angry. This is a provocation to the entire United States. But they are more afraid. Now the White Devil can survive intact under the nuclear bomb, and they no longer have the means to kill the White Devil. Especially now that the White Devil has launched a revenge and obtained their information from the incompetent president, coupled with the White Devil's extraordinary reconnaissance ability, as long as they are willing to spend time, they will definitely be able to find them one by one and kill them. No, the plan against the White Devil must be started again. We have been fighting him to the death, and he will not let us go. In the internal meeting of these generals again, a general said with fear. Another general looked equally terrified. He recalled the unprecedented tragedy that happened in the White House, and recalled the surveillance satellite standing on the ground looking up at the sky, but it seemed that the White Devil was looking down at them, and even his soul was constantly trembling. We must fully support Colonel Stryker's research. He has a deep research on mutants, especially the Sentinel robots that can have multiple mutant abilities. There is definitely a huge room for development. It is not impossible to compete with the White Devil in the future. But in the previous battle, it has been proved that the Sentinel robots are not the opponents of the White Devil. Another general said with a sad look and no confidence. The general who wanted to support Stryker immediately retorted, "No, today's Sentinel robots are only the initial stage, and the final stage of the Sentinel plan is that the Sentinel robots can copy the abilities of mutants, store these abilities and pass them to all other Sentinel robots. And they can use different mutant abilities to target mutants according to their abilities." But other generals are still not optimistic. But the White Devil's strength is no longer something that can be defeated by numbers. His mutant abilities are almost not rigid. Whether it is long range or close combat, whether it is attacking or saving lives, they have reached the peak of mutants. Even if the Sentinel robots collect all the mutant abilities in the world, even if there are more Sentinel robots, they cannot pose a threat to the White Devil. Threat, just repulsion attack is enough to easily destroy them. No, the general retorted, the Sentinel project has a final idea, that is, the Sentinel robot can increase the upper limit of mutant ability. If we can increase the upper limit of space attack, we can break the unsolvable defense of the White Devil. If we can increase the upper limit of the steel body ability, we will not be afraid of the attack of the White Devil. And we found an extremely special ability person. His mutant ability is to erase all the mutant abilities around him. Even if this ability cannot affect the White Devil now, as long as its limit is increased, it will definitely work on the White Devil. Quote, "But this is just an idea. It is almost impossible to achieve this level with our technology," other generals retorted. The general who proposed to support Colonel Stryker smiled mysteriously, then clapped his hands, and two people walked into the meeting room from outside the door. One of the two people was a man with tattoos all over his body, looking like a local hooligan, and the other looked very weird, with a weird green skin and a head several times larger than that of an ordinary person. The first one was familiar to many generals. He was the terrorist who attacked Tony Stark in a car race some time ago. His name seemed to be Ivan Vanko. They didn't know the other one. Seeing the other generals looking at him with questioning eyes, the general who supported Colonel Stryker smiled confidently. "Believe me, Dr. Sten and Dr. Venko will never let you down. Outside the door, Colonel Stryker ordered the Fantasy Master to end his control over the generals. A sinister smile appeared on his face. White Devil, please look forward to it. In the hidden laboratory of Xavier's School for Gifted Youth, Jean Grey was using the initial Phoenix Force to repair Cyclops' body. In the battle with the White Devil, she was easily defeated by the White Devil. After being blown away by the terrifying Black and Red Singularity, she was about to die, but she mastered part of the Phoenix Force at a critical moment and survived. Later, Quicksilver rescued all of them, but even with Quicksilver's speed, he couldn't take them out intact. Except for Wolverine, who has a self-healing factor and an adamantium skeleton and is intact, everyone else was seriously injured to varying degrees. Among them, most of Cyclops' body was destroyed by the terrifying repulsive force. If Jean Grey hadn't used the Phoenix Force to repair his body immediately, Cyclops would have died by now. Others also lost some limbs, but they recovered quickly under the Phoenix Force. Professor X's lower body was restored using the material reorganization ability, and the X-Men and others were all recovered. But even so, they still didn't feel happy. The whole laboratory was filled with a heavy atmosphere. The White Devil was like a gloomy sky, pressing on the X-Men, making them unable to breathe. Cyclops suddenly punched the wall at the side. As he collided with the wall, red blood slowly flowed down the pure white wall. Shockwave is dead, Darwin is dead, and a large number of civilians are dead. The treaty to liberate mutants will never be promulgated. All our previous efforts were in vain. Our dream is like a joke in front of the White Devil. Kill him, we must kill him. This time, even Professor X did not come out to stop them. They were full of hatred for the White Devil at this time. The White Devil was not only their enemy, but also a huge stumbling block for the peaceful coexistence of mutants and humans. But they fell silent immediately. With the power of the White Devil, how could they kill him? Everyone looked at Jean Grey. At this time, she had mastered part of the Phoenix Force, and it was absolutely possible for her to fully master the Phoenix Force in her body, and it was very likely that she would obtain more fragments of the Phoenix Force. This was their only hope. Tens of thousands of meters in the sky, inside a huge aircraft carrier, Nick Fury looked at the picture sent by the surveillance satellite in front of him, his eyes deep. Coulson was beside him, reporting to Nick Fury about the disappearance of the White House. The white-haired demon first killed hundreds of opponents, then killed dozens of soldiers, and then killed tens of thousands of civilians in the battle with the X-Men, and finally destroyed the White House. The white-haired demon is definitely not suitable to be an Avenger. All previous plans for the white-haired demon have been cancelled. There is no law in his eyes. He does whatever he wants. He is the biggest threat to the Earth now. After listening to Coulson's report, Nick Fury made the following conclusion. Coulson naturally knew this problem, but now S.H.I.E.L.D. has no way to deal with the white-haired demon. Just when Nick Fury wanted to take out the pager he carried with him and call Captain Marvel, he suddenly heard Coulson say, "Aren't there still the legendary Eternals protecting humans on Earth? If it was before, it would be fine, but now the white-haired demon is killing tens of thousands of people at a time. Those Eternals who take it as their mission to protect humans will definitely not sit idly by. We can use them to deal with the white-haired demon. The existence of the Eternals has been recorded in the database of S.H.I.E.L.D. Nick Fury is also afraid of this group of superhumans with extremely strong superpowers. Because he doesn't believe that these Eternals are simply protecting humans, they must have other secrets. However, if the Eternals and the white-haired demon clash, it will undoubtedly be 100 benefits and no harm." So Nick Fury cast an admiring look at Coulson and said to him, "Find a way to tell the Eternals what the white-haired demon did, attract their attention, and lure them to attack the white-haired demon." At the same time, in another office of the space carrier, Alexander Pierce stared at the unscrupulous and powerful demon in his sight, his eyes shining. He thought this was an opportunity. Hydra and the unscrupulous white-haired demon were a perfect match. So he secretly sent a message to try to contact the white-haired demon and win him over. Turning the White House into history and erasing it from the map, Sumu came to live in Tony Stark's luxurious seaside apartment and continued to practice his skills. Now that such a big commotion has been made, it must be that the relationship with S.H.I.E.L.D. has been broken, and it is impossible to know the specific location of the space cube, so that he can't forcibly seize the space cube for the time being. Now he can only wait for Loki to come and deliver the express. At this time, Tony went to study with the Supreme Sorcerer, and he didn't know when he would come back, so the seaside villa was empty and no one lived in it, so he occupied the magpie's nest and lived here. During this time, he had no free time. While constantly absorbing the energy of the arc reactor, he was also practicing the unlimited spell and trying to master the portal. However, his talent in the field of magic was obviously not as good as that of Doctor Strange. Even with the blessing of 6 eyes and energy absorption, he still could not master the portal. However, at this time, he could already draw sparks, and he must be close to fully mastering the portal. As for the unlimited spell, the reason why he focused on practicing this skill was that he found that the advanced unlimited spell could control space and even create a pocket space. Su-mu now needs to use a backpack to carry 10 arc reactors, so the pocket space is quite necessary for him. Not only because it would be convenient to have a pocket space, but also because he is too uncool now. As a handsome and elegant white-haired demon, carrying a backpack during battle affects his appearance too much. Not elegant at all. The unlimited technique continued to open, controlling the 5 arc reactors to slowly move around Su-mu, and the system kept sending the sound of upgrading. Energy point +1. Energy point +1. Energy point +1. Unlimited technique experience +1. Unlimited technique experience +1. Unlimited technique experience +1. Finally, after continuous practice, the system sent a different sound of upgrading. Unlimited technique experience +1. Congratulations, your skill unlimited technique has been upgraded. Unlimited technique LV4 3/5000ths interfere with atomic level matter, dominate space. The closer the object is to the user, the slower it will be, and it will never touch the user, and it has partial control over space. A large amount of memories came from his mind. Under the amplification of the 6 eyes, Su-mu continued to absorb these memories and completely consume them. At the same time, he continued to use the reversal technique to repair the brain damaged by excessive brain use. After a moment, Su-mu absorbed all the memories, and he immediately discovered the difference of the unlimited technique. The system's description of the unlimited technique has changed, with an additional explanation of partial control over space. As for the performance of the skill effect, first, the range of the unlimited technique has increased from the original 50 centimeters to the current distance of about 5 meters, which has expanded tenfold. Then the unlimited technique has a more absolute control over space. Within this 5-meter range, in addition to the original ability, Su-mu can also control space to undergo a variety of changes. These include instant movement, space creation, space flashing, space folding, etc. At this time, his unlimited technique has completely surpassed Gojo Satoru and reached a new realm. After digesting the memory transmitted by the system, Su-mu immediately used the unlimited technique to create a pocket space and put 10 arc reactors into it. Because this empty pocket space was created by him, he can absorb the energy of the arc reactor inside the pocket space. In addition, Su-mu has new gains. Perhaps because of the upgrade of the unlimited technique, his understanding of space has become deeper. The original portal magic that was obscure to him is now extremely clear. He feels that he has mastered the portal at this time. Without hesitation, Su-mu immediately put on the hanging ring and waved his fingers. With the splashing sparks, a stable portal slowly formed in front of him. At the same time, a new skill appeared on the system panel. Portal LV1 1/100th consume magic power and open a portal to any location you have been to. Magic power can be replaced by energy. After successfully mastering the portal, the system finally included this skill, so that Su-mu can upgrade this skill, thereby continuously increasing the upper limit of the portal. LV1 can go to any place you have been to. LV2 can abandon the hanging ring and open the portal with your own ability without any external objects. LV3 can go to any area of the current dimension universe. LV4 can go to other dimensions and realize dimensional jump. When the level of the portal reaches LV5, or even higher, it will be possible to teleport the world barrier and go to other worlds sooner or later. Su-mu is looking forward to it. Fight with Superman, fight with Sun Wukong, tell the motherland that you are a hero, and open the unlimited spell in front of Gojo Satoru. Various wonderful worlds are waiting for him. At this moment, the six eyes caught something, and several agents in black clothes rushed to the beach villa. Su Mu showed a more pleasant smile on his face, and there was fun again. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.